I'm MarzGurl.
I'm JoshKnightTheFirst.
Welcome to episode 116 of MokkoriPlay, the only podcast dedicated solely to all things City Hunter.
On today's podcast, we're going to cover the brand new Netflix movie entitled City Hunter.
Wow, can't believe we're here.
Yeah, how did that happen to work out, you know? Like, we took days off in between, weeks off in between certain shows, because, we have lives. We get busy.
Yeah, it happens.
But somehow it timed out to where, just as we had finished City Hunter 2, that's when this movie drops.
And this episode, we intend to get it out on Mondays usually, but it's another movie, and this is gonna be long too.
We're gonna go in deep. That's just what it is.
Yeah.
And especially with something like this, and I think we can go ahead and say up front, this movie is worth your time.
100%. It's really hard to not try to compare it to the French Nicky Larson City Hunter movie. The entire time we've been comparing it as we go along, because shockingly the French film is so good, and we keep bringing it up, and I know we haven't talked about it in a dedicated episode yet. That will happen eventually.
It might be one of our last episodes, or at least before we cover Angel Heart, I think.
I don't know about that, because the Angel Heart TV series, well, I guess we would talk about all of City Hunter before we start talking about spin-offs and stuff, right? Okay, yeah, that might be.
But as such, that kind of set the bar for an adaptation of City Hunter, because even though it's an adaptation of an adaptation, because, the French did different things to it to make it their own as Nicky Larson, Philippe Lachaud and his crew, they still did their damnedest to make sure they were faithful to the source material, and they show it in spades throughout that movie.
Right, so the bar is set really, really high for the Netflix film, which you would think, well, obviously this one has to be the best one, because, they already win by being Japanese, and being in Japan, and being in Shinjuku, in Kabukicho, and they are, they are neck and neck, in my opinion.
Well,
they're
it's
very close to each other.
I said as much on social media, that the way I look at the two of them is like reaching a split decision in a heavyweight boxing match. Technically speaking, they both scored very high, just in different categories.
Yeah, I would agree with that. And tonally, they're kind of different movies, right? It's like one is more serious than the other one is.
Right, but we'll get more into that once we actually get through the whole movie. Before we actually get into that, though, just for a second here, I do want to talk about the premiere that happened just a few days before the movie launched on Netflix, which they had there in Kabukicho.
Yeah, exactly, which is the perfect place to do it. Where else would you do it? You better do it there.
And it's so funny / angering to me that the place that they had it, which is the place, if you play the Yakuza games, it's the place they refer to as Theater Square. It's right in between the newly built Kabukicho Tower and the Godzilla Toho Theater.
With Godzilla's head, sticking out of the top of it, yeah.
And you see it even there in the first opening action sequence of Shinjuku Private Eyes.
Yeah, because his head is on top of the Hotel Gracery that's connected to it.
And in that movie, Ryo saves it from being blown up.
From a rocket launcher.
Right, exactly. And so that's where they had it, and the reason it's angering to me isn't that they had it there. They should. If they were going to have it anywhere, they needed to have it there.
You're just mad we weren't there.
Because just a few months back in November, that very hotel that's right there in Theater Square, that Appa Hotel.
That Appa Hotel, yeah.
That's where we were staying when we went to go see Angel Dust.
You can see the Appa Hotel the entire time during this blue carpet premiere. We were right there, walking around in that area. It's pretty crazy. I thought it was funny that they went with a blue carpet premiere, because I think that's deliberate, because people know of Ryo and his blue jacket. But this movie does not at any point in time feature blue jacket Ryo. This is crazy we have to refer to blue jacket Ryo. We're talking about Lupin.
Right, you have to differentiate between green jacket and red jacket.
Yeah.
It's kind of that same thing here, and I think it's not too far of a stretch to think of it that way, that Nicky Larson is a very faithful adaptation of the anime.
Of Blue Jacket Ryo.
Whereas this movie is actually closer to an adaptation of the core manga.
Which you can kind of feel a tonal difference, I guess. It's not to say that the manga isn't really funny and goofy, because it is. I mean, otherwise you wouldn't have the anime as it comes out, but...
And not to say that this movie isn't funny and goofy at points. It is.
But at the same time, time, we've mentioned this a few times too, the anime is actually really nerfed. It nerfs out on some really serious things and some really serious action and violence and stuff, so I do feel like, yes, tonally, the Netflix series is closer to the manga, and then Nikki Larson...
Netflix movie.
Netflix movie, excuse me. And then Nikki Larson is tonally closer to the anime.
Right, exactly. And it's kind of like that when we were looking at the blue carpet premiere, because they're trying to have these serious, albeit kind of dry interviews with the core cast there on one part of the blue carpet, and then on the other end of the blue carpet, you have what I can only refer to as the Shinjuku mixed men's and women's Mokkori chorus singing Ode to Joy, but with the lyrics replaced with Mokkori, 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 Mokkori.
Because that's what Ryo does right at the beginning of the movie, right? So, yeah.
Except this time it's in 4-part harmony.
And then they don't ever stop playing the new version of Get Wild.
Get Wild Continual.
Get Wild Continual. They just played that on a loop for like an hour or something.
The thing of it, though, is you would hope they would make more use of all the other iconic music that came out of City Hunter, and I guess not. Maybe, in my own head, maybe they're just saving that for later, that they have plans for more movies down the road. I can only hope that's the reason why they didn't bother using any other music.
It would be nice, and it might be giving a little bit of it away, but I can't say that it necessarily teases another movie, just that you can imagine, oh, there could be more after this. But also at that premiere, they had the Mini Cooper there down at the end of that blue carpet. They were doing interviews there at the end of that blue carpet, and some of those questions were kind of weird, like, what would you look for in a partner? Like, it's just kind of this really broad, open-ended, goofy question. The guy who plays Makimura...
Masanobu Ando.
Somewhere in the middle of it, he had to spit out his gum or something? Why did he have that anyway? Also, why did they make him do that in the middle of the interview?
I know, that was kind of weird too.
Weird. Like, some of this premiere was kind of strange.
But on top of that, and we're probably going to get into this more as we go through the actual review of the movie, Ryohei Suzuki was the best choice to play Ryo Saiba. Like, this dude is dedicated on a level I could only hope I would expect out of an actor doing this, because even through the questions he was asked there in the blue carpet, through other interviews he's been giving to outlets online, he knows what City Hunter is.
He's definitely very studied, so if he didn't already deeply know what City Hunter was, because that's the impression that he's trying to give off, then he studied the hell out of it before going into interviews. That's what happened.
Like, as I understand it, he went out of his way to get a 357 Magnum and was training with it for months before the actual stunt training started. So he was already kind of ahead of the curve when it came down to actually rehearsing for the movie.
I think that's smart.
And safe, too. Nobody was hurt during the making of this movie, I would hope.
I'm gonna assume he wasn't firing it like a real gun.
Yeah, Alec Baldwin wasn't working on this one.
Jeez.
What? He's not listening to this podcast. Anyway, point being, I think that's enough tease. Let's go ahead and get started talking about Netflix's City Hunter.
We did watch the movie twice. I think that's fair to say. We watched it in Japanese first, and then we watched the English dub, and I don't think there's a lot of really big differences. I am, really frustrated with Netflix because I knew the subtitles it gave us the first time for Japanese. I was like, these are not the subtitles, these are the closed captions. And I tried to tell you, no, switch it over to the subtitles, switch it over to the subtitles.
No, you're right.
And every time we tried to switch it over, it would just goof on us, and it would either spit out the English dub along with it, or it just gave up.
So this might be a difference of where you're watching it, because watching it on the computer, it was a lot easier to choose the Japanese audio with the English subtitles.
Right.
Versus watching it with the dub and it auto giving you English closed captions, which
Netflix
that was harder.
Does that a lot.
That was harder when we were trying to watch it off the PS5.
Yes.
So that's kind of where the goof happened. You can do it, but they make it very cumbersome.
It is. I really hate the way Netflix is laid out. This is not the first time I've had that problem. This is not the first time I've seen other people have that problem. I'm just saying, if you haven't already watched it, make sure you know which one you're choosing, because there is a difference between subtitles and subtitles CC, which is closed captions, which is going to match the audio of the English dub.
Yes, so be wary of that going into it. Okay, so to start with, we start off like we should over at Shinjuku Station at the chalkboard. And we see, as we're zooming in on it, that the XYZ has been written on there with a simple message, "Find my sister."
So somebody is now meeting with a lady, and it's a lady with kind of a low-cut white sweater.
And this person says that they are looking for their sister named Kurumi. She's all alone, and she's been last seen somewhere in and around Kabukicho, and she's very worried about her, so please find my sister. So naturally, you figure this is City Hunter picking up the job, and we cut straight to a rooftop at night, where we see our hero, Ryo Saiba, up on a roof with night vision goggles, peeping in on some girls in bikinis at a sauna.
And he's singing his Mokori song, which you hear in the trailer. I think this is the most weirdo peeping that he really does, honestly, for people who are not necessarily in big, open, public spaces.
So it's worth noting up front here that compared to other interpretations of the character, the way that Ryo is horny has been updated.
It's a little nerfed.
Well, I prefer to say updated just because it's not like he doesn't act like he's horny on main.
Sure.
It's more so that the way in which he does it is more personal and not nearly encroaching on other people's private space.
You could consider this one kind of an encroachment. I mean, they're in front of like big open windows, it looks like to me, which is not to say, oh, that gives you permission to like,
he's
be
still
looking in on them.
Like, you have to look at it one of two ways. Like, one, he's peeping from several buildings away, which he's done in the anime, so at least it's accurate.
Yeah,
but to that other
weird,
end,
but it is accurate.
But to that end, it doesn't get much worse than that in this movie.
No, at no point does he force himself onto anybody. He's not grabbing at anybody or demanding, like, oh, you owe me sexy times. Like, that never happens.
Yeah, he doesn't actually grope anybody in this movie. Which is, again, something we can also say about Nicky Larson.
Right. Very similar in Nicky Larson. We're going to have to, obviously, we have to talk about
there's going to be a lot of
Larson
comparison here.
But I feel like Nicky Larson is way more weird about it, actually.
Well, Nicky Larson found its own way around it, but we digress.
Yeah.
Currently, though, up on the roof, Ryo has to be reminded by Makimura, who's sitting down in the Mini Cooper, hey, we're working on a job right now, can you find the girl we're looking for? Sure enough, Ryo gets his focus back and sees that several buildings away, there's the girl that he's looking for, Kurumi, and she's being accosted by several Yakuza.
Yeah, you can assume they're Yakuza, right? They're definitely big, tough dudes, and they sure look like they jumped out of the Like a Dragon series, right? That's just what they look like.
And as you see there in the trailer, Ryo decides, well, okay, now's the time to go ahead and get in there. He fires off a grappling hook to grab onto the rooftop, slides across, goes through the window, and proceeds to have a very detailed fight hand-to-hand with the 6 guys in the room.
This is where I think this movie shines over the Nicky Larson film, because we automatically, like, straight off the bat, Nicky Larson also has an action sequence right at the beginning that is very good, but I think the Netflix City Hunter film's action sequences on a whole really pop.
Well,
right?
I think the major difference here is that a very large chunk of Japan's major action groups that do action for, like, TV and movies and tokusatsu were all working on this movie.
One of them was Japan Action Club. The other one I'm familiar with was
AAC Stunts, Japan.
AAC Stunts was the other one I know.
They're all there in the credits, but
Yeah.
these are the top guys working on Super Sentai, Kamen Rider, all these different shows.
I know. I think AAC was on Zebra Man,
if I'm not
believe.
mistaken. Yeah. So all of the fights in this movie are very well filmed. They're immaculate, and you can follow all of the action easily. Because I know we have a lot of complaint here in the States about, oh, action is too frenetic and you can't follow it with the camera. No, you can clearly see every hit.
Right, of course. And I do think that we're making an exception here to have really good action, because I think it really shines. The action is very, very good. I just feel like Ryo in the manga and the anime doesn't usually, it's not like the answer is never, but he doesn't usually get this up close and personal and in people's faces and punches and kicks.
In more recent years, he has, with, like, more recently Angel Dust and Shinjuku Private Eyes, they've got him doing more hand-to-hand stuff now.
Right, but I'm saying, like, traditionally, in the manga and the television series proper, he doesn't do that often. He's just really, really good with a gun. Like, if you put him in Jump Force, he's largely relying on the gun.
Now, the thing here, though, is that there isn't just the reliance on hand-to-hand, even though he's a beast with it.
He's really good. The action is very, very good, so I forgive it.
He takes care of 5 out of the 6 guys. The 6th guy tries to pull a gun on him, and without even turning around, Ryo shoots through his overcoat and knocks the gun out of the guy's hand, just as he would in the manga or the anime.
Right, so we're seeing right away, yes, he is a beast with a gun. He's so good with it, he doesn't even have to think about it.
He doesn't even have to look.
No. That's great. I love it. So here he is. He saved this woman,
Kurumi,
and he says, all right, great, so I'm here to save you. But she is still freaked out anyway, and we don't really know why, and Ryo is very confused, and she runs away. He does not understand why she's running.
Now, admittedly, when we see Kurumi, she's very disheveled. She has been through a lot, which we'll find out about here shortly.
We saw her get slapped, so yeah, she's been through a lot.
And again, to tie it back to the whole tokusatsu thing, Kurumi is played by actress Asuka Hanamura, who you might have seen in the Kamen Rider Geo spinoff, Kamen Rider Shinobi, as Shinobi's little sister. So we saw her, I think it was last year, in the reprise of that during Kamen Rider Geats. So some of you might remember her from that. And here, she's in a very bad way. She's running through this building, trying to get away from Ryo, and also Makimura, who's having to give chase too.
Right, Makimura has now jumped out of the Mini Cooper that he was sitting in. The Mini Cooper is here, that's great. But now Makimura's like, Ryo, what did you do? And Ryo's just like, all I said was hello. And actually, he's not lying.
He's telling the truth.
He really wasn't, weird. He was kind of like, hey. But he wasn't like...
He wasn't being like, hey. Like, he was just trying to be, cavalier.
Yeah.
And trying to be like, hey, I'm the cool guy. I do like that just before this hallway fight breaks out, you get a little bit of business here of Ryo running into a mama.
So, what he means when he says mama is he's run into just a bar, right? Bars always have a host. And usually if it's a female host, we call them mama. And this happens very often in the City Hunter anime, that he visits bars that are hosted, owned, either by trans women or men in drag, right? These are often called Okama bars.
Yes.
You see them a lot in the Yakuza franchise as well.
Yes.
That's the theme of the bar, is oftentimes they're hosted by these drag queens, or they might be trans people sometimes.
Right, and what's fun here is that Ryo seems to have a rapport with this particular mama, who's even trying to introduce him to their new hostess.
Who, if she's trans, great. She's gorgeous.
Either way, she's gorgeous, and Ryo doesn't have the time because he still has to keep chasing Kurumi to the next floor. They try and chase her through this building, which I assume is like a karaoke bar, the way the rooms are cordoned off.
Well, it just looks like one of these very traditional Japanese-style buildings that's full of just strings of businesses.
Well, there's a business on every floor. A different business, yeah.
Or maybe even several businesses with small businesses in every room,
So once Kurumi has ducked around a corner to get out of sight of Makimura and Ryo, the Yakuza catch up to them, and we're treated to a very decent hallway fight with 9 guys versus Ryo and Makimura, and here I really appreciated them showing that Makimura can throw down.
Yeah, I appreciate them giving him something to do so that we can really see that he was at least sort of good at what he was doing with City Hunter, because we spent such a short amount of time with him, which matches the amount of time we see him
in this movie.
In the anime.
Well, yeah, that too.
In the anime, it matches the short amount of time that we see him in the anime, and we don't hardly see Makimura do anything in the anime until much later on as a flashback.
Well,
right?
The thing of it too, honestly, is that we're told of Makimura's deeds in the anime,
right?
But we never really got to see him do anything.
Not a lot of it, no.
And you have to remember, he was a cop. He can scrap if he needs to. And I love that here in the hallway scene, he had this nice little wall bounce takedown.
It was pretty good. It was pretty sick.
Yeah, it was pretty sick, I'm not gonna lie. Unfortunately, though, after they've taken out the guys, Kurumi still finds that she needs to get away from them, so she does this superhuman leap across to the next, not rooftop, but the next, awning.
There's another ledge,
small balcony.
A balcony, that's the word I was looking for, yeah. To another window on the building just across the alley.
So Ryo has to tell Makimura, hey, go pull the car around, I'm gonna try and chase her. He backs up, runs as fast as he can to make the jump. He doesn't make it to the ledge she landed on. He accidentally falls through a window, lands on a blow-up raft that you would get at the pool.
An inflatable raft, yeah.
And ends up sliding all the way through the building, out the other window, and flying through the air, as Makimura remarks, like a perverted Aladdin. So after throwing Ryo a towel from within within the Mini Cooper that has their branding logo on it, because for what it's worth, we realize here in the movie that City Hunter has basically what amounts to a front company name, the Sayaba Group, which we see imprinted on this towel and later on their business card.
See, I missed the towel entirely.
Like, I think the whole thing is that them showing they have these items is to show, one, just like in the show, Makimura, I think, was in charge of branding to give them some air of legitimacy, because you can't just go around saying, hey, I'm City Hunter, or I'm with City Hunter, can you cooperate with us?
Well, I don't know as far as this movie is concerned. This movie makes it feel like Ryo's the one that's kind of been doing this, and is like the ringleader, and Makimura came along for the ride later.
Perhaps. Either way, that does line up with the manga and the anime that Ryo has been in the underworld for longer, because that would line up with Makimura having previously been a cop.
Right.
And then eventually he quit the force.
Yeah, they make that very upfront and apparent. It's a little hard to piece together when you're just watching the anime. Like, all of Makimura's backstory is kind of staggered throughout. It's almost like Hojo didn't fully know what to do with Makimura right at the beginning, and so he was like, man, I killed him off real fast, and didn't tell people a lot about who this guy was. Maybe I better pepper this in throughout a little later.
How are we gonna fix that? Oh, I know. Flashback! And with some coordination, both Makimura and Ryo are able to pincer Kurumi in this alleyway to try and tell her, hey, calm down, we're not here to hurt you, your sister sent us, but this sends her into a rage, and then veins start bulging out of her neck and her cheek.
I don't know if I would call it a rage, but definitely, like, she is way overstimulated right now,
like she's got an anxiety attack
she's
almost.
Panicking, and
yeah.
This has got her doing superhuman jumping abilities, like we saw her, like, doing that crazy jump from that one ledge to the other ledge.
Well, the thing is, before we don't actually see the jump, we just see that suddenly she's on the other building.
Yeah, but she had to have jumped.
This time, though, we see her jump over Ryo, land on, like, a
moving truck.
On a moving truck to get away from them.
But as she has jumped, she has dropped two vials full of little, just blue liquid of some sort,
which Makimura manages to pocket before the two of them are both stopped before they can give chase by Sayako.
Great, Sayako's here. I'm glad she appears very early on. Also, I feel like she's doing slightly better police work in this movie than she does in the anime.
Oh no, it's the trade-off that I feel we have here is that Sayako in this movie is actually a policewoman.
She's much less infuriating too. Like, she's really not stringing Ryo along.
No, not hardly at all. And the thing of it too is that I do wish there had been more comedy in between them.
Sure.
And so I feel like they underutilized her actress, who for my money did a fine job.
Oh sure, I think she was fine. Like, I have almost no complaints about her, honestly.
I just feel like they ran out of movie to give her a chance to use her thigh knives.
That's true. Like, the thing that she's known to be able to do, she never did it. That is very true. So, sorry if you were waiting for that, it never shows up.
But as she's got them pulled to the side here, as they realize there's no way they can catch up with Kurumi, Sayako's having to fill them in on the fact that there are these weird cases going on in and around Kabukicho of these people on the street just suddenly showing up, roiding out, and like doing these feats of strength, and then suddenly dying several days later.
It's very much sounding like Venom from Batman to me, like Bane's Venom.
Right, exactly. And she wants them to stay out of it because they're kind of impeding the case. This is further impressed when Sayako's, I assume, supervisor, we don't actually know what his rank is, I don't think, another cop by the name of Ito shows up and tries to tell them also to stay out of it and get on Sayako's case for not going in harder on them.
I just think it's interesting that Sayako is trying to keep them out of the case entirely, but she is trying to protect them. That's great. That is accurate to what she usually does. That having been said, usually in the anime and the manga, she's a little more accepting of their participation because they usually end up helping her in the end.
Which I think is the same case here, is that she realizes she needs somebody on the outside, not held back by the PD system.
That definitely comes through a little later. It's not as as obvious right here in the beginning just yet.
Thankfully, though, once they've been excused, business does have to go on because they do have normal lives, the two of them. And so Ryo gives Makimura a ride to a restaurant he needs to be at because while this whole chase has been going on, Kaori has been on the phone with Makimura asking where is he. It's her birthday today, and he set up a reservation at a restaurant for the two of them, and he's kinda late.
By a whole hour. This is the first thing that I'm like, okay, we've got a difference here from the anime / manga that, it's in the end, when we're talking about it in just one digestible movie, it's not a super big deal, but if they were to continue on and make another movie, it would be kind of they already kind of messed something up, because if today is the first day that Ryo ever sees Kaori, because it is, we just talked about this, what was it, the last episode?
Two episodes
ago. Kaori is the person that gives Ryo his birthday, which marks the day that the two of them met each other. But Kaori's birthday is something like a week,
5 days apart.
Yeah, like less than a week later. So that makes this wrong. But it's not a big deal.
You can probably write around it later if you need to.
Sure.
But it is kind of a point off.
Just a little bitty one, though. I mean, when you compare it to Nicky Larson, you could just say, yeah, but they did it in a totally different country with a totally different ethnicity of people. And you can start taking marks off of Nicky Larson. And for some reason, I feel like I'm just grading Netflix City Hunter harder because I was like, you had everything! You had everything! And I know, I'm just being nitpicky.
No, if anybody's gonna be nitpicky, though, it's gonna be the two of us.
I know.
I do very much appreciate that on the ride to the restaurant, we're given this great scene between the two of them, between Masanobu Ando and Ryohei Suzuki, really showing us the camaraderie between Ryo and Makimura as they're kind of being buddy-buddy with each other and giving us the information about Makimura's dad having taken in Kaori from that case all the way back when, 20 years ago.
Yeah, all this is great, all this is accurate, too. I think the only thing that is missing here is he never pulls a ring out of his jacket saying, oh, I'm supposed to give this ring to Kaori on her 20th birthday. But, it's good enough. It's good enough that he does have this conversation about, oh, well, because my dad died, he said he was always going to tell Kaori when she became an adult. And in Japan, adult means 20 years old. She was always going to be told when she was 20 years old that she was adopted, and now our dad's not here anymore, so now it falls onto me to do it. The conversation is still the same.
Right, exactly. So that still matches up perfectly fine. What I think is funny, though, is that as they're talking about the case here, Ryo's saying that he's not really interested in going after Kurumi until Makimura points out that she's a cosplayer with over 30,000 followers on Photogram.
Well, he's actually not interested in her just because she's a cosplayer or because she's really famous. It's just the second that Makimura's like, nah, dude, check out this picture. And it's a very boobular picture. And, I don't know why Makimura thought, I need to make Ryo look at this photo while he's driving. That's a really stupid thing for Makimura to have done.
Because he gets distracted and they almost crash for a second. But then Ryo's
but he's fine.
Hey, I forgive you, bro. Send that to me. It's research. But he goes ahead and drops off Makimura there at the restaurant where he can clearly see Kaori. And this seems to be the first time he's ever seen her because he's remarking oh, that's her.
He definitely already thinks that she's cute, which I kind of want to just state right up front. There is no point in this movie where Ryo ever mocks Kaori for her appearance in any way, shape, or form. He never misgenders her.
No.
He never says that she looks too masculine. That never comes up. I am so relieved.
Yeah, it for a lot of people, that can be very off-putting when you're trying to sell somebody on City Hunter. A lot of Ryo's behavior just isn't acceptable anymore.
Right.
And so here, I think this is a good intro to it, but you still have to warn people if they want to get into the anime.
That is very true. This guy had to grow as a character, and even, in the most recent animated film, I don't think he's done a lot of growth. The anime seems to continue to have him be just the shittiest male person you have ever seen.
Yeah, his brain is still stuck in the 90s.
80s.
80s.
I mean,
well, no,
you got a
both.
91, like...
80s, 90s, they're both here. Point being, as you see the wheels turning in Ryo's head, Makimura has to tell him no less than 3 times, hey, don't hit on my sister. Hands off my sister. I'm telling you, don't touch my sister.
I feel like that is a thing that has slowly kind of developed over time, that Makimura is extra like, don't touch my sister. I think it was less apparent in the manga, a little less apparent in the anime. Interestingly enough, it suddenly shows up in the Jackie Chan City Hunter movie. Like, hey, don't hit on my sister. Don't ever try to hit on my sister. And then, like, it has consistently kind of become a thing. Because in the anime, right, like, he sees a
He
photo...
does tell him that somewhere in episode 3 or 4 not to hit on Kaori.
Well, what he says... Because he tries to show Ryo a picture of his sister, but he shows him the wrong picture on accident. And he's like, no, what's wrong with my sister? My sister's real cute. Like, he's praising his sister. And I don't think he has anything to say to Ryo about don't hit on her, because Ryo's reaction to what is clearly the wrong photo is that he thinks this person is not attractive looking.
Well, I think it also happens in that first conversation that they have, the first version, I should say, of the conversation they have at the park, where in the anime, he tells him about the ring and about Kaori being adopted, that's when he also tells him don't hit on her. Because by that point, episode 4 has already happened, and they've already met.
That's true.
But here, because I want to say there's a significance to Makimura having to have told him 3 times.
Well, when you tell somebody something 3 times, it means you're supposed to remember that shit.
Right, exactly. And then once he shoos Ryo away, he manages to get in the door and decide to try and relax with Kaori, have some champagne, congratulate her on turning 20. But you can still see he's clearly nervous because he does want to actually get this out there.
Well, on top of that, for some reason, Ryo is still, like, sitting outside the restaurant like a weirdo.
Yeah, I think he's just dicking with him. Like, hey, how's it going? I see you.
I'm still here. Also, I'm still looking at your sister. Okay, I'm gonna go now. Bye.
But as Ryo is driving away, we see that there is an oncoming truck that it almost hits Ryo.
It is kind of driving a little weird.
But it's enough for Ryo to kind of remark, that's kind of odd. You see it in his eyes.
Yeah, he doesn't say it, but it's on his face like, that truck was driving funny.
And going in the direction I just came from. But back at the restaurant, we see that Makimura's trying to relax, and he's still clearly on edge, trying to talk to Kaori about what he's just been doing, because after this fight in the hallway, he's kind of got a bloody lip.
The side of his mouth is bruised already, and so Kaori doesn't believe the stories that he's been telling about where he goes and what he does. He's like, nah, we were trying to catch somebody's dog.
A lost dog, yeah. It was running and yapping, and that's where we were all night.
Yeah, sure. Trying to catch a dog, huh? Is that how you ended up with the shiner? Like...
Oh, it's just, it's part of the job. It's just what happens.
Oh, yeah? Then what's up with the chalkboard at the train station with the XYZ? What's up with that?
Hey, bro, can you tell me what city, hun?
No.
Okay, shut up. So throughout the movie, only one person in the whole movie utters the full title City Hunter.
Right.
Any other time somebody is about to say the full title, they get shut up.
Yeah.
Like it's a dark secret.
Which, I'm thankful for that, because as far as the anime is concerned, it is like everyone and their mom from all across the world knows who City Hunter is. Whereas here, it feels more like the only people who logically would know who City Hunter is would be people of the underworld. Like, really seedy people. Normal people might have heard of whatever this Saiba company is, but they don't know what City Hunter is.
Right, like you gotta be deep in the shit to know what it is. And you see Makimura there, he's trying to work up the courage, he's trying to get it out, he's kind of worrying Kaori, but unfortunately before he can get it out, that truck that just missed Ryo hits Makimura through the window. And
this seems very deliberate, very targeted.
Because we see earlier from back when they were going through the alleyways that there's a group that is now watching both Ryo and Makimura, and they've noticed that Makimura picked up the vials. So clearly they want Makimura. And despite having been hit by a truck and finding a butter knife to try and fight off his assailant...
The guy who was the driver of the truck, yeah, who's now jumped out of the truck. The truck is in The restaurant,
and
right?
has set off the sprinklers in the restaurant.
And yes, Makimura's got this butter knife, and like he stabs like into the shoulder of this truck driver guy who's like
he is also hopped up.
He's tweaking out. He looks a lot like Kurumi did when she was like freaking out and her veins were blue and popping out off of her face and her neck.
And like it was bad enough that it was just a butter knife, but Makimura was able to get it in his shoulder meat.
But that does not stop a guy who's like super hopped up on whatever the fuck he's on.
And he pulls it out of his own shoulder meat and shanks Makimura like 9 times.
Repeatedly, yeah. And that's the thing that I'm like, see, that's gotta hurt worse than an actual sharp knife. To me, my mental image is just, like, I can feel, like, a butter knife is too dull. To me, that feels like it would hurt way too much.
We don't see the shanks, but we hear the shanking happen. And this, I think, is closer to, I think we said it was the pachinko machine depiction of Makimura's death.
Oh, you mean, like, because we have to re-explain this probably, because there have been a handful of actual physical pachinko machines that have been released in Japan. And as happens with a lot of anime have tie-in pachinko machines, and then they get original animation in the pachinko machine, and that's literally the only place that it will ever be seen. It's to entice you to go in there and start gambling on these pachinko machines. And yeah, there's one pachinko machine in particular where we see Makimura's full entire death, where I don't think we see it in, like, almost any other format.
No, we don't see it in the anime, because it's a cutaway to the sky.
Yeah.
In Nikki Larson, we just hear the gunshot.
In this animation, from a pachinko machine, it's just the gnarliest death you've ever seen of Makimura.
Like, you see his shit get wrecked.
Yeah, in any adaptation of City Hunter. It's just the worst one.
The unfortunate part about this one is that the shanking is happening here. The truck is in between them. The shanking happening. The truck is parked here now in the restaurant. And on the opposite side of that is Kaori listening.
Now Kaori can see and hear it happening. Yeah.
Which is completely different from any other depiction, where she wasn't anywhere nearby and had to be told this happened.
Yeah. But Ryo is also, unfortunately, too late. He, like, had good gut instincts that told him he needed to turn around and follow this truck, but by the time he got back, it was too late.
When he gets in there, the guy has taken off, even though he's been stabbed, and unfortunately, there's just bloody Makimura in his last moments, handing over the vials to Ryo, being like, "Hey, man, sorry I took these. Look out for my sister." Bleh. And it's only here at the 18-minute mark that we get the title sequence.
Well, in regards still to Makimura's death, I think it's really interesting that we still have what is basically a rainy sequence death, even though it's inside and it's only looking rainy because the sprinkler systems are going off. Right? Almost every other death you've ever seen of Makimura is in the rain, and I feel like that's
goodbye to Ryo,
I feel like that's really important, and I feel like that's what they wanted to do. I wonder if maybe because this was Kabukicho, and they couldn't just shut down all of Kabukicho, maybe they couldn't get a rain machine to do rain shit out in the middle of Kabukicho, but they could do it in a building. Like, that's just my theory. I'm just assuming.
I would say there's probably some weight to that, if only because one thing you have to give to this movie is that they did in fact shoot in and around Kabukicho and Shinjuku, and some scenes you're like, oh, they're in it.
Yeah, and it doesn't feel like, I could be wrong, but it doesn't feel like they've totally shut down all of Kabukicho. It's just that they might cordon off some little section just for the sake of filming. I know, as an extra, I have done film shoots on location in places. You're not just gonna shut down Hollywood Boulevard, okay? That is never gonna happen.
No, like, so sometimes you don't have a choice but to work around the business that is going on in that area.
Right, so all they really do is cordon off, like, oh, we just need it from what the camera can see. We gotta go. That is all we're cutting off to people. So I just strongly feel like this had to be done in a building. It couldn't be done out in the street.
Right, exactly. So after the title sequence, which, again, it kind of makes the movie seem more serious than it is.
It does. I do feel like this opening is more serious. I was like, this is setting a weird tone for this movie, I feel like. I don't hate this movie by any means.
No,
But
no.
I did feel like, oh, that's a weird tone for this opening, yeah.
But once that ends, we are now seeing that it's 3 days later, and Kaori has now written on the chalkboard, hey, Ryo, get in touch with me, because obviously she's got some stuff she needs to work out.
And Ryo has seen it, but he's basically ignoring it.
Because remember, the last thing he was told was take care of my sister, and so keeping up with other depictions of the character, to him, the best thing he can do for Kaori is to just keep her the hell out of it.
Keep her out of this lifestyle, because if Makimura died, like, he wouldn't want that for Kaori. He wouldn't want that for her at all.
In the meantime, Sayako is going over the security footage of the restaurant when everything happened, and she manages to see the handoff between Makimura and Ryo of the vials.
She just doesn't know what it is that has been handed off.
And I love right here that, just a little note, she tries to call Ryo and get answers out of him, because clearly he's withholding some sort of information, but the answering machine message she gets is, hey, Ryo here, I'm currently dealing with my boner right now, so if you could just leave a message at the beep.
Like, that's how it's translated in English. Like, he says, Mokkori here. I'm very thankful that they have not gone with Nookie. That would not have made any sense.
Oh yeah, we didn't say that up front. There's no Nookie in this movie.
Yeah, thank Christ. Also, I like how you said it was his answering machine and not his voicemail.
Well, yeah, voicemail, force of habit.
Now, if this had been placed in the 80s,
Then it would have been an
you would
answer.
have been correct.
You know what I mean.
I know. No, you're right though. But no, I'm very, very thankful. There wouldn't have been a reason to call it Nookie here. That would have been totally not even the correct
That would have been so
verbiage at
wrong.
all. So I think they've done a good job mostly with Mokkori. Under most circumstances, they actually leave it alone unless there's actually a good usage case for turning it into, like in this case, boner. That makes sense. Mokkori is a sound effect for getting a boner.
Kind of a side note here, right now as we're recording this, because it's the weekend that the movie was released on Netflix, if you use hashtag City Hunter over on Twitter right now, you get a little icon at the end of it that is just the hiragana for Mokkori.
It spells Mokkori, yeah.
So you get City Hunter plus boner.
Once again, you've just never seen the word for the sound effect of getting a boner thrown around as
much as we have in the last week.
Yeah.
But again, here we see that Sayako is still being chastised by her superior Ito, like, so you don't have any leads on this, huh? Well, just keep it quiet. Keep the press off our back. We just gotta keep doing the work. All right, I'm leaving.
Also go bring in that guy.
But she's not gonna bring in Ryo.
She's not gonna bring in Ryo.
Now, in the meantime, we're led to believe that Kaori has just kind of been, I don't know, wandering the streets for the last 3 days, which would kind of make sense. She just lost the last family she had.
So she doesn't really even know where to begin, honestly. Although she does know she's got to find Ryo because Ryo knows something. He's the only one that she knows she needs to find.
Now, there's one thing that we do kind of have to bring up, which is that one of the first things we see her doing is she has gone back to the scene of the crime, where now the side of the restaurant where the truck came through is now tarped off.
Right.
There's flowers that have been left on the sidewalk, and I couldn't tell you who left them. If that was from Ryo, or that was from Kaori, or whoever left those flowers on the sidewalk.
That's true.
The thing that got on both of our cases, though, is that in the subtitles it says bird tweeting.
Right, in the closed captions, because it's trying to give you the sound effects of what's going on. Let me mimic for you what the sound effect is that is happening in the scene. It's pew, 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 and I'm going, that's not a bird tweeting, that's the sound of the crosswalk.
That's a crosswalk, yes.
So this person who's done the closed captions just doesn't know what Japanese crosswalks sound like. Mind you, crosswalks sound different in different places, but this is an incredibly common one. This is very common. It's just a pew, and it lets you know, hey, if you have a hard time seeing, I am letting you know through audio that it is time for you to cross the street.
And it's one of those things, like, contextually, you would know that if you were aware of the thing you were working on.
Yeah, and, like, unfortunately, as a closed caption editor myself, you don't always get that chance sometimes. So this person was just doing the job that got put on their desk that day. That was it.
Yeah, so whoever worked on this, I didn't see in the credits, I didn't check that far. Sorry, you kind of missed that one.
Well, no, closed caption editors often don't get credited in the first place.
Sometimes they do on Netflix.
No, the translator
Or no, you're right. The translator
gets credited. The closed caption editor almost never gets
No, you're right.
credited.
In any case, we see Kaori walking around Godzilla Street, which is actually the name of the street.
It didn't used to be, but ever since they built that Godzilla head on top of Hotel Gracery, yeah, it's been renamed Godzilla Street.
And she's looking around trying to find Ryo and seeing all the various different people on the street, which is an accurate depiction of what that street looks like on a given night.
100%, for sure. I didn't see nearly as many colorful, dressed-up people when we were out there, but I did see all the people that were just kind of sitting in the middle of the square, talking and drinking and just being loud and chatty. To anybody who thinks that Japan is just always a calm and clean place, I guess never go to Kabukicho if you don't ever want that illusion broken, because Japanese people are just people, okay?
Yeah.
And then you go to the wrong part of town and suddenly you're like, oh, it's kind of dirty out here. Wow, what is this?
By that same token, if you want to have fun, go to Kabukicho.
That is very true. I agree, yes.
You'll have a good time.
Just keep your wits about you. Like, it could be dangerous if you're an idiot, but if you're not an idiot...
Or someone else is being an idiot.
Or someone... Yeah, just keep your wits about you. That's generally the rule of thumb. I don't think you will have a problem so long as you're just always kind of looking around you and not being a moron.
Correct, yes. Eventually, though, Kaori does find Ryo in the arms of two different hostesses and pulls him aside to chastise him. Hey, why are you ignoring my messages? I want to find out about who killed my brother.
And Ryo is just like, hey, I don't know who you are, bye! He's just trying to brush her off as best as he can.
And eventually she gets in his face enough times to where he's finally like, look, you need to forget about this. Go home and sleep it off. You don't want this.
Go home. Watch Naruto.
Exactly.
I mean, that's not what he says. I'm quoting
Attack the Block.
Attack the Block. But that's basically that's the mood right there. Go home, watch Naruto.
And then she shows up at his apartment the next day. Well, I went home and watched Naruto, and now I'm here. So here, now seeing the interior of Ryo's apartment, we're actually noticing a lot of similarities here between it and the way it's set up in Nicky Larson, in that both interiors, I think they both made this decision to make the interior red brick to mimic the outside of the building like it's depicted there in the anime.
Right, because we don't ever see the outside of this building. I think if they'd had the opportunity, they would show it. But there's no real red brick buildings anywhere in that vicinity, I do not believe.
Probably not anymore for a very long time.
If there ever was, there isn't now.
They're long gone.
Yeah, so we don't have an exterior shot that looks like that. But we do have an interior shot where we're like, well, we need to make it look like red brick so that we remembered, we show the audience, we remembered that building was red brick. Even though the interior in the manga and the anime is not red brick, we had to do something.
We had to make some kind of reference to that.
Uh-huh.
And Kaori has just invited herself in, trying to look around like, well, if my brother worked here, then there's clues, right? My brother should have left clues, which leads to her going through all of Ryo's shit and uncovering his porn collection and collection of hostess contact cards.
Like calling cards, business cards, whatever, but they've got their photographs on them. And he's like, no, leave my stuff alone.
That's research.
My stuff. She's picked up this box that she's just trying to move stuff and trying to learn anything about anything her brother was getting into before. And the bottom of the box just collapses and all this porn comes dumping out of it.
I do appreciate that he has both Blu-ray and DVD.
That is very true. This visually is just incredibly similar to Nicky Larson, right? Like, they've got a scene that's almost identical to this, where Laura, French Kaori, is really chastising Ryo and his behavior and stuff, and she opens up this closet door, and all this porn comes just pouring out.
The difference here is that here in City Hunter Netflix, it's Blu-rays and DVDs, whereas in Nicky Larson, it's like porn magazines.
Yeah.
Right. But otherwise, it comes across exactly the same.
Yeah.
Now, the thing I do have to give to Netflix City Hunter here is that Kaori continues to investigate around the apartment and the whole building, and we see one, like I had just brought up a couple of episodes ago here on this podcast, that if you see the elevator she came out of to get on this floor with Ryo, It's the right number of floors. It's 2 sub-basements and then 5 floors of the building.
That is a very interesting attention to detail that they did not have to go that far. If they hadn't done that, I would have never noticed or even complained, right?
But
then they did it, and you're like, huh, they knew. Oh,
and I know because I just clocked that in 357 Magnum.
Right.
But not only that, after leaving the main living room, she goes on to investigate further, and she walks into the gun range.
Yeah, so this is a thing that this movie has a one-up over Nicky Larson on, because they never showed a gun range in Nicky Larson at all, right? But this movie's got a gun range. Which
is great.
Yeah,
like that's
great.
A feature of the building. We spend so much time there in the anime that it's weird that you don't see it in other places, but it's here.
It is
We've got
here.
the gun range. And there on the counter in front of her, she sees Makimura's service weapon.
Which is the one that you'll notice during the anime becomes Kaori's gun. So
the snub-nosed revolver.
This, you know, it's going to become hers at some point in time. So Ryo has followed her down here and has decided, alright, I'm gonna freak her out a little bit. Like, yeah, this was your brother's gun, check it out. And then starts firing at a target on the other side of the range, right? And he does his perfect hole-in-one shot. He fires all 6 rounds of this snub-nose, all straight through one singular bullet hole.
Yeah,
right
just perfectly centered.
Right through the center of the target.
And it's trying to tell her, this was your brother's reality. This is what reality is for us. You need to stay the hell out of this.
Go home, watch Naruto.
Yes. Watch some other Shonen Jump series besides the one you're currently in. Meanwhile, across town, we found out that Sayako has come across another dead body, and sure enough, it's the guy that knifed Makimura. He has now finally died.
It's a little anticlimactic that the guy who gets Makimura, he's just found dead in an alley.
Yeah, that he died off screen.
It's a little, at least in the anime, we get the guy that killed Makimura.
Nicky Larson, too.
Nicky Larson, they get the guy that killed Makimura. Even in the Takarazuka show, they get the guy that killed Makimura, right?
Right.
They get the motherfucker. And here, he just kind of keeled over.
Right.
Like, nobody actually killed him. He just died.
That's a little unsatisfying, quite honestly.
Yeah.
But the thing to notice is that as the police and Sayako are looking over the body trying to find clues, we see that Kurumi is there kind of incognito in like a hat and a pullover hoodie, trying to keep an eye on things because obviously she's tied to this stuff.
Right.
And we find that for the last several days, she's been holed up in a manga cafe, which if you don't know anything about Japanese culture, if you don't have a place to stay in and around the main part of Tokyo, you can absolutely basically live out of a manga cafe if you need to.
There's every possibility I've brought this up in a previous episode, but I did that a couple of times while I was living in Japan, because in 2008, I was studying Japanese for a semester in Japan, right? And they put me in a dormitory, and they told me, okay, your hours for the dormitory that you can be in here, like, the doors are gonna be locked at the hours of 7 a.m. and 11 p.m. And then they laughed to each other about how, haha, we just said 7-Eleven, isn't that funny? Anyway, so after 11 p.m., I would be locked out of my dormitory. And that happened to me once where I just caught the train too late and they locked me out of the dorm. It sucked. I hated it. But there was a manga cafe close by. It was great. They had the padded floor, right? Like, well, you could choose a couple of different options, right? You could just choose a desk, but if you're, like, trying to stay overnight, you pick the kind of booth room with the padded floor, and there's a computer and a TV in there, and then you can go get, like, unlimited soda and coffee and hot chocolate, and you can read as much manga in there as you want, because it's just a shit ton of this library of manga in there, right? And it's super fucking cheap. It's incredibly cheap. Like, normally I would not suggest, oh, just sleep in manga cafes while you're in Japan, but, like, it's actually not half bad.
Like, we don't necessarily recommend you do it, but I'm not gonna lie, I'm, like, morbidly curious to try it.
Because, here's another thing, too. There is, unfortunately, a really sad part of this that is, like, there is invisible homelessness in Japan, where, like, as especially businessmen, right?
Right.
Who will live in these manga cafes because they don't have it's too expensive or something else is going on in their lives. And so these salarymen, these businessmen, basically live in and rent out manga cafe booths.
It's cheaper than rent in most cases.
Yeah, so they just live very minimalist. They have a couple of changes of clothes, and then sometimes they go to, thankfully, Japan is a society where bathhouses are an extremely common thing. So
some of these manga cafes even have showers, too,
Some have showers,
right?
yeah. Yeah, so, it is very good, and it is very convenient for a select group of people, but also the situation is actually kind of sad. That's actually where I feel like we are with Kurumi right now.
Correct,
in this movie, is that she has run away from home. She's just on the outside for some reason. We
haven't been told yet.
Yeah, and so she's living in this. You can tell, she comes back to this manga cafe, and some of her own stuff is already in there. So she's been in there. This is her rented out manga cubicle.
And she's been trying to duck from people for some time now because something has happened to her and she's trying to stay away from some people.
Right.
And while she's here at this manga cafe, she gets a DM from Lore Cosmetics.
Yeah, we don't know much about what's going on with it. I did have to, really listen into, that's the pronunciation of it, because it's spelled like the word lore, L-O-R-E.
But it's pronounced Lore.
It is pronounced Lore.
And they're DMing her with an offer for some kind of a partnership.
Right. And remember, she's a cosplayer, so that would make sense. Cosmetics want to partner up with a cosplayer? Yeah, I get it.
And yet again, later on that same day, or night rather, again, Ryo is kind of going around the streets, acting like nothing has happened to him, but we can kind of get the feeling that he is doing some investigating, but keeping it on the DL, like he's still being his normal jovial self.
I mean, that's certainly because we already know who this character is. If you don't know who this character is, he just looks like he's some asshole who's just totally blown off the death of his friend, right? But we know, you and I know, because we've been doing this a while.
We've been kind of at this a little bit.
We know that's just how it looks, but actually, on the DL, he knows a bunch of shit already.
Right. And we kind of hear a little bit of it, when he's talking to some hostesses, they tell him, if I hear anything, I'll let you know.
And you're like, oh, what kind of questions has he been asking people?
And some other hostesses aren't nearly as forthcoming. They're like, hey, Ryo, when are you going to pay your tab?
And he's like, oh, never mind, let's not hang out, I gotta go, bye!
And again, Kaori is following him very badly, Judgment, the video game Judgment or Lost Judgment levels of, you should be able to see me behind you.
And you do.
Levels of tailing.
Ryo sees her, for sure.
And he's like, I told you, go home and watch other Shonen Jump series. And she's like, no, my brother needs to be avenged. The only way to do that is if you help me. Ryo's like, alright, are you sure you want to know about this life?
Because I'll show you. I'll show you right now, let's go.
And she's like, alright, bet, let's go.
And then he does the most Ryo thing possible, and he goes to some kind of entertainment bar of some variety.
Some kind of club, and
he becomes the performing act for that night. And he's doing what I guess he's calling the Mokkori dance. And actually the entire audience loves him. They think he's
men
great.
And women, they're all hype for what kind of a show he's putting on.
He's down to a Speedo, okay? That's it.
And
no socks, no pants.
And it is worth noting here, there's no way of getting around this. Ryohei Suzuki is in insane shape.
He's looking pretty good, yeah.
He looks like he could swim, professionally at the Olympics.
The Speedo is helping.
No body fat on this guy.
Right.
Incredibly cut. And the dance is funny. It's almost identical to the same dance he does in Shinjuku Private Eyes.
Because he also introduces a fan, right? He's done this both in the TV show and in, a movie or two.
Basically his version of burlesque.
Very funny burlesque.
Comedic burlesque.
But also I've seen other Japanese performance acts do literally this exact same thing. Where you get two fans and you kind of flip-flop them in front of your junk, but you do
it's the tease.
You do it in such a way that no one ever actually sees your junk.
Right.
And he does this funny forward head roll, but he's successfully covered his entire crack.
Right.
No one
You can't see anything.
You can't see it. He pulls his fan out like he's lying down and he balances a Daruma on his dick. It just
But, like, that's the character. It's 100% the character right there.
They got it spot on, and Kaori is just like, this is not what I was expecting at all.
And, like, you can kind of see this. I love that they got that across. Misato Morita, the actress who's playing Kaori, does a very good job of being this version of Kaori.
Sure.
That's just being introduced to how weird Ryo actually is.
Mm-hmm.
You can see it on her face that she's on the fence about, like, I want to look, but this is really friggin' weird.
Yeah.
So he finishes the act, and he tries to sneak out the back door, but Kaori catches him. Like, no, I want you to actually take me investigating. You need to show me what's going on.
And he's like, fine, here's where I was going next anyway, let's go.
So they go to this, like, underground casino of some kind that's clearly not a place you're supposed to visit or know about.
There's a guy in a suit who's guarding the door.
Like, the doorman, yeah. And he kind of gives Ryo the up and down real quick, like, weirded out that he's here.
That'll be important in a second.
And another guy comes from behind the door, because the doorman wants to shoo Ryo off. Obviously, like, if you don't want people knowing about this casino.
But this other guy comes out and he's like, no, the boss knows who this guy is. He's allowed to come in. Oh, okay, cool. Go on in.
And so he's walking into this bar casino.
Like, it's clearly an illegal gambling den.
And everybody's kind of giving him the side eye. And we find out that this particular place is belonging to the Akutsu group.
They're a Yakuza family.
They're the same Yakuza family that was trying to grab Kurumi at the beginning.
Yes.
And so when these guys recognize Ryo from the beginning of the movie that they're the guys he beat up, like, hey, this guy came back, and he's with some other girl.
But then a dude comes rolling in a wheelchair with a couple of other guys that
we assume is like the patriarch.
He looks to me like the patriarch of this family, very clearly.
He's named Akutsu, so I'm assuming he's the patriarch, yes.
The patriarch. It would be weird if Akutsu didn't run the Akutsu family.
Yeah, that'd be
be very strange. And
yeah, like, who runs the Akutsu family? Is it the guy named Akutsu? No, it's the guy named Roy. He's actually the guy.
But no, one of his side dudes comes along and just starts slapping the shit out of all these other Yakuza.
The underlings.
And he's like, shut the fuck up! Akutsu knows him! Leave him alone!
Like, he's trying to, like, reestablish order right now. And old man Akutsu here in the wheelchair is like, oh, I thought you'd be coming around.
Sorry, my new boys don't know you yet. That's my bad, I'll teach them. But also, could I possibly persuade you to put on a pair of pants?
And we zoom out here to see that Ryo has been wearing his long sleeve shirt, his trench coat, but he's only got the Speedo on.
He never put his pants on. In fact, I don't actually know where his pants are.
I think they're down in the club where he was just performing.
So he's got to turn around, go back, take his pants from the club, and put them back on.
Or send Kaori to go get him, I don't know.
I like that Kaori ran over to, like, look around his trench coat to check, like, what? Like, did she not notice he was never wearing pants?
No, because it's the way it's filmed, and I love that that's how they did it. Ryo had just finished putting his trench coat back on when Kaori came through the door to yell at him to take her with him.
Right.
So she never noticed that he wasn't wearing pants.
I mean, I think that's weird considering, like, you'd notice if he was barefoot.
But no, that's comedy.
It is funny, I mean.
And again, similarity to Nicky Larson there, they also did the no pants joke.
I'm the king of the no pants.
Ryo Saiba is the king of the no pants. And once they have brought him a pair of pants to go ahead and put on, Akutsu and Ryo get down to business, and he does apologize to Ryo. Hey, we heard about your partner. Sorry, bro. I need you to know that wasn't us. We didn't do that.
Ryo's not convinced it wasn't them right off the bat, but they begin to explain, no, actually, so this was some dude who was all roided out. We actually have had a couple of our own dudes go missing. 2 dudes go missing that also, I guess they got roided out too, and like, they're gone. We can't find them.
And actually, what happened was the same girl that you said approached you saying she had a sister missing, she came to us too, and she gave us this photo of her. This is the girl you're looking for, Kurumi, right? Yeah, she approached us too.
Yeah, so we don't know what's up with that, and we've been trying to locate her ourselves. But I guess since you're here now, we're just gonna let you handle this, man. Like, we did that much legwork, but I think we're gonna be hands off now from this point on. Thanks.
Because the thing of it is, and they seem to know this, Akutsu and his guys know, Kurumi is like these people. She's been exposed to whatever the hell is roiding everybody else out, but for whatever reason, Kurumi has not completely gone insane. So I think whoever she was kidnapped by, they want her for that reason. You with me on that? You understand what's going on?
Everybody understands. I think it was pretty easy to understand, actually. Pretty easy plot. So Kaori is starting to get some guts and is like, hey, so where's Kurumi now? Like, she's just not even scared to come approach the patriarch of a Yakuza family and start demanding answers. Like, it took her a second, but then she's like, no, if I figure out what's going on with Kurumi, then I start to figure out who fucked up my brother. So.
Right. And for what it's worth, Akutsu gives her the little bit of information that he has, like, oh, yeah, I think she's around the Toyoko area. That's the last I heard. And then Kaori just bolts.
So she's gone. I don't know where the Toyoko area necessarily is. There's a hotel by that name somewhere around Kabukicho, because it just seems to me like Kaori goes straight back to the square.
To Theater Square.
I mean, we call it Theater Square because that's what they call it in the Yakuza franchise, but I don't think it's actually in real world called Theater Square. But it is pincered by two theaters on either side of the square, so it makes a lot of sense. So she's just back in the middle of it, where people are always talking real loud and drinking and stuff. Like, we saw that when we were there.
Yeah.
And so she walks up.
It looked almost identical to when we were there.
It really did. So she walks up to some other people who are doing that exact same thing. They're like young and bright and colorfully dressed and loitering and drinking and yelling, happily talking to each other. And Kaori's just like, hey, this girl named Kurumi, have you seen her? Do you know who she is?
And these people are just like, we're not talking to you. Who are you? Get out of here.
So now Kaori is like, oh my god, you know who she is. You totally know who she is. But they're like, well, even if we did know, we wouldn't tell you.
And so Ryo has to pull her aside like, hey, you can't be doing this. This is not the way you do detective work. You're not going to get anywhere doing that. She's not just going to magically show up.
And then she magically shows up.
And Ryo's like, hey, what the fuck? And again, Kaori has no chill right now. So she immediately approaches Kurumi and the people she's talking to.
Oh my god, Kurumi, what are you doing? Come here! Like, this is too much.
And Kurumi immediately is like, ah! And then takes off.
Yeah, you think, like, of course, Ryo was like, what the fuck are you doing?
And now we have to run.
Now there's a chase sequence through Kabukicho. We're doing this shit again. For the second time. I don't even know why Kurumi keeps coming back here at this rate, because she just keeps getting chased by people.
And so they duck into this bar, or this club, this really hoppin' nightclub. And it's...
yeah.
And, you know, Kurumi's trying to make her way through the crowd, and unfortunately, when she's about to almost the DJ booth, one of these big hulking guys that's obviously with the organization, we don't really get his name more than once, so we'll go ahead and name him right now, Brown Bear.
They'll call him by his code name of Brown Bear, like a total of once, maybe twice?
I think it's twice maximum.
Maybe twice, but it hasn't happened yet, but screw it, we're just gonna
He looks like, without a better way of putting it, he looks like somebody cosplaying the older Toguro brother from Yu Yu Hakusho.
I get, just a really large person.
Yeah,
he's
a bigger guy.
He's just a big dude, yeah.
But anyway, he's got a gun pointed at Kurumi's head.
So that seems really bad, but Ryo, thankfully, is in there and can see this shit.
And in one of the several displays of his gunmanship ability, he very quickly pulls his .357 and in slow-mo shoots through the crowd, in and around people watching this bullet, manages to hit nothing but this guy in the shoulder.
Which is a very Ryo thing to do. It's a great shot. It's a great tracking shot of this bullet, and it's something that Nicky Larson, the movie, had also done. Both of these movies are extremely strong in that aspect. They do a fantastic job accomplishing literally the same thing.
But the thing that I give credit to here for Netflix is that in Nicky Larson, he just kind of leaves his arm extended after the shot, whereas here, after he makes the shot and hits Brown Bear, he shoots and then immediately puts the gun away.
Which I do think that is a more realistic interpretation of that. If we were looking at the anime, I think there's more room for, oh, this is a cartoon.
Well, no,
he can extend his arm.
No, it's the opposite. In the anime, we've seen several episodes where he does that, where he shoots, doesn't want anybody to know where the shot came from, and then immediately puts the gun away.
Sure. But he's done both, you know?
He has done both, yes. Unfortunately for Ryo, though, Brown Bear's got some help. There's another female agent, also wearing a face mask to cover their identity, who chucks a grenade into the crowd.
Grenade seems much worse, so now Ryo kinda doesn't have a choice. He needs to shoot this grenade out of the air, or else everybody in that room is gonna die. So, unfortunately, big boom, now everybody's spooked.
Because Ryo has shot the grenade before it hits the crowd.
Right.
Now everybody's scared and running, and now Kurumi has a chance to take off before Kaori or Ryo can get to her.
But Kaori does continue to take chase, right?
And eventually she does catch up to Kurumi a couple of blocks away, and Kurumi's just exhausted by this point.
Yeah.
And she passes out, only to wake up back at Kaori and, well, it's not their apartment yet, at Ryo's apartment. I need to be specific about that.
Of course, while she's passed out, she's kind of nightmare dreaming about memories of, like, she's been through some shit, right? She's remembering this time where she's looking at text messages that she's trying to send to a specific person.
Her friend Kento.
This was Kento, somebody named Kento. We see memories of suddenly she's assaulted out in the street, somebody picks her up off the sidewalk and throws her in the back of a van. We see her wake up on, like, a table or on a chair, and, like, they're operating on her, or, like, injecting her with stuff. And, shit's bad. Shit's real bad. But she manages to escape. Like, she has taken an opportunity at some point, and she's grabbed some vials of the shit that she was injected with, and she took off. And you can only assume this is why they're after her. She was a lab subject that now has taken some shit she probably shouldn't have taken, and they want to get her back, and probably also get those vials back. We don't know yet. That's what we've seen. But she wakes up after just nightmaring over these things that she has been through.
And Kaori is doing her best to try and comfort her and calm her down, like, hey, you need to rest, relax, we're not here to hurt you, my name's Kaori, we just want some information.
Oh no, I'm getting out of here. But she's, like, way too tired and out of it to actually be able to get up and go anywhere.
And Ryo's trying to also calm her down and be like, hey, we're not here to hurt you, we're here by request, your sister is worried about you and she wants you to come home.
I do not have a sister, I am an only child. What the fuck are you talking about?
What? And Ryo's having to finally piece together, oh, that's what's going on. I've been tricked by a pair of boobies.
He has to go off into the corner and, like, chastise himself for being so distracted by a pair of tits.
Because in actuality, the person who asked him at the very beginning of the movie to go on this mission is not actually her sister. She's part of this organization that is trying to get Kurumi back.
Yeah.
And Kaori is trying to impress upon her, look, there's something real important going on. We need you to tell us anything you know. And Kurumi's still, like, brick walling, like, no, I don't know anything. I don't know anything. I don't know what you're talking about. And then Ryo takes out the vials he was given by Makimura and just puts them on the table.
And he's like, okay, so I got these. My partner had them. My late partner, who also died from the guys that are after you, that's her brother who has died, and she wants to know more information because they killed her brother. It's kind of fucked up. What do you know?
And so now finally Kurumi fills in. Okay, fine, I'll tell you that much. I was looking for my friend Kento. He went missing. I went looking for him, and then they did all this shit to me.
So that sucks.
And Kaori does her best to try and calm her down, like, look, I get it. I hear what you're saying. I believe you. You didn't deserve for any of that to happen to you. And Ryo also impresses to her, look, you need to stay here right now. It is not safe for you on these streets.
What's great here is, like, he's made this offer for her to stay there, and it is not like the anime in which if Ryo offers for a lady to stay over, he means he intends to go peep on her in the bedroom or in the shower or try to sleep with her at some point. Like, there's none of that.
Zero.
None of that is happening here. He's genuinely just like, no, there's some fucked up shit going on out in town and we need to keep you out of that. But she's still like, no, I'm not staying here. I'm gonna go. But she gets up and tries to leave again, still is too weak to really do much of anything.
So she doesn't have a choice but to stay.
Right.
And it's only at this point in the movie that we're finally really seeing the bad guys all together for the first time. So we see this one female agent who was posing as the sister, who we now know is nicknamed Scorpion.
Yeah, this is the first time we're hearing their nicknames, their code names for each other.
And they're both answering to a guy who's kind of got his face obscured off in a corner behind a big desk and talking about how they messed up the mission. And he demonstrates that each of the people that work for this organization, this Union all are just like the Suicide Squad, and they've got bombs implanted in the base of their necks. And to show them what's going to happen to them if they screw up again, he just offs a guy.
Like, it's definitely to prove a point, because they bring out this guy to put a gun up to Brown Bear's head, and Brown Bear is not the guy that they kill. They kill the guy with the gun up to Brown Bear's head. They just explode the back of his neck, and that guy is dead now. The guy behind the glass at the desk giving these commands and stuff, he is wearing a ring. It looks like UT, and I don't mean like the University of Texas. This,
right.
If you know anything about the manga, or even the most recent animated movie, Angel Dust, UT is very clearly Union Teope, and he's even saying, like, he's holding his hand up to his chest, and he's like,
doing a salute
for the good of the Union or whatever. So they mean Union Teope, right? Like, to us, we know that.
To the initiated, you know.
So to anybody else, it's just like, the Union? What Union? This is a shady group. Yeah, they are. They are a very shady group, and some shit has been going down for a while. We'll get a little bitty baby bit more information about them a little later.
And he's telling the two of them, the two agents, you guys better not screw up. We're getting a lot of pressure from the homeland to get this right. So you get that feeling they are not from around here.
The homeland? That's crazy. And to be fair, Union Teope in, the manga especially, doesn't do a lot of legwork in Japan.
No.
It comes up much, much, much later. Especially also in this Angel Dust film. Like, they are very largely a Central America sort of thing.
Which we'll get to here. So as those guys are getting chastised, Ryo is actually meeting up with Sayako, and he has allowed her to go ahead and examine the two vials, which she confirms, yeah, this is the exact same substance that's in Kurumi, that's also in the guys that we found their dead bodies, which is also in the body of the guy that we found that killed Makimura. This is all the same stuff. This is what's driving people to roid out and go crazy.
And now Ryo is putting all of this together, and he's like, I'm pretty sure this is Angel Dust. Oh, Ryo, you know what this is? Wow, wonder why you know.
And Ryo's having to tell Sayako, yeah, this was kind of used illegally in warfare in other countries, and whoever used it did terrible things, and we see this kind of, I hope it's not AI. They haven't said one way or the other, so I'm assuming...
I think it's just a filter.
I think it's just a filter, because we do know this was filmed with people. Because here in this flashback, and they more or less confirmed this part, we see a young child with a knife have those veins on his face, and off to the side of this child...
Just bodies. Just a sea of dead bodies.
On this battlefield, and across the sea of these bodies, we see a guy who's kind of big and wearing a green fatigued uniform.
It kind of does look like a green fatigued uniform.
And we can only assume that this is actually Umibozu.
Right. We know that somebody was dressed as Umibozu somewhere in this movie, and there's just, not official confirmation of what part of the movie that is. But I'm fairly certain they mean right here.
Right, because that particular cosplayer / actor has shown the pictures of himself on social media, on Twitter, and Ryohei Suzuki, who plays Ryo, has retweeted that guy saying, it was great having you dressed as Umibozu.
So, us, knowing City Hunter, right? We know that this child soldier who was in the middle of, Central America war zone or whatever, this is very probably baby Ryo.
Because we kind of just covered that, 2-3 episodes ago.
Right. So we know that. If you know anything about City Hunter, you know that.
And if you want to know more about that, listen to the last 3 episodes of this podcast.
But also, we are not going to get elaboration on this at all in this movie.
For the rest of the movie, no.
This is it. This is all of Ryo's backstory you're ever going to get in this film. So, to anybody who knows what's going on, great, you know.
Now here, though, after this nugget has been given to us, we get another piece of information from Sayako that's a little different from the source material.
Only barely. It's very slight.
But it's the fact that she found out that another incident like what's been going on currently with people roiding out also happened, wouldn't you know it, 20 years ago, that somebody was roided out, raging through Shinjuku. That guy had to be put down, and the guy who put him down was Makimura's dad, and the guy who was put down was Kaori's dad.
And that's when Makimura's dad adopted Kaori, because now Kaori's an orphan, and like he felt bad that he had to kill this guy, and so he's just like, well, fuck it, I've got a daughter now, and just brings her home. This is extremely similar to how the events played out in the City Hunter manga and anime. It's just that a lot of this information doesn't come from Sayako. You're supposed to have heard it from Makimura, that, yeah, my dad, like, he was chasing down a bad guy, and he had to kill the bad guy, but there was a baby in the backseat of the car, and so my dad felt bad about that, and then he brought his daughter home, right?
But the biggest difference here is that when the father was killed in the backstory, it had nothing to do with Union Teope.
Well, certainly that's true in the anime. I actually have to confess that I am less certain about whether or not that's confirmed in the manga, because I haven't read all the way to the end of the manga, because I'm waiting for all of it to be officially translated, because I couldn't stand reading scanlations. I just thought they were
And
awful.
to be fair, you can read what is out now through Koamics.
You can. It's kind of clunky the way you have to do it, but you can do it either through a browser or on a phone app. It can be done. You can read it legally for free. It's great. They're just not all the way to the end of the manga yet.
But they're working on
The
it.
good old buddy of ours, David Evelyn.
Shout out to David, doing the Lord's
getting there.
work.
He's getting there.
Yeah. But now Ryo is burdened with this information. Like, damn, this is all tied together. It's that much harder for me to keep Kaori out of it when she's so inexplicably tied to this case.
Right, exactly.
So he's kind of arguing with it back and forth in his head, and he kind of goes and grabs some coffee, and he comes back to the apartment, only to see that Kaori is now coaching Kurumi, who is now in full cosplay, like cat girl cosplay, as her cosplay alias Milk.
Yeah, Milk, her name, that's just it.
Yeah, I know.
It's
I
Milk.
wanted to say Milk-chan, but I don't think she calls herself that.
No,
she just calls herself
that's a
Milk.
very different thing.
That's a very
Milk-chan.
different character.
I'm just sitting here wondering, where did she get all of this shit?
I don't know.
Like,
maybe I assume
Kaori maybe went out and picked some stuff up for her or something.
from the manga cafe, maybe.
Maybe, that could be.
But now she's decked out in full, like, Call Me Kit gear. Like, she's fully cosplayed out. And she's working on the pitch for this thing she's working on. And Kaori invites her to go up and approach Ryo because she has a question to ask. And in that kind of cutesy nya voice that you hear a lot in anime.
Lots of meowing, yeah.
She's, like, up on Ryo's arm. And Ryo's trying to act like he's not into it, but he's totally into it. And she's like, hey, can you help me out, nya? I need you to protect me, nya, because I got an offer from a conglomerate to be their spokesperson, nya. Can I do it, please, nya?
And Ryo's like, hey, nya, let me think about it, nya,
Hell, nya.
And they're like, really? And he's like, yeah, are you stupid? Somebody is out to get her and kidnap her and do God knows what to her, and you want to put her in a big old public event where everybody knows who she is and where she is? That's stupid.
And Kaori's like, you're just being a hater. And Ryo's like, no, I'm doing my job.
You don't understand. This cosmetics company is huge. And Ryo's like, actually, I do understand. And I don't know what that's about, because that delivery, like, even in the English dub, he's like, actually, I do. Like, it's this very confident, like, oh, you just tried to insult me about what I do and do not know about cosmetics. Like, that tells me, like, headcanon, like, he's been doing the drag queen shit, and, like, we just haven't seen it yet, and we're not gonna see it in this movie, but he knows his cosmetics.
Oh, yeah, he knows what's up. Or either that or he's buying, like, cosmetics as gifts for women.
Oh, well, I mean, that could be. I don't know.
Either way, like, Ryo knows more than you give him credit for in a lot of things.
That's very true.
And Kurumi, like, I don't know that she was trying to guilt trip him, but she kind of does end up doing that, where she's like, it's fine, I'm gonna go either way. Like, if they get me, they get me.
If I die, I die. Yeah, I know what that's like.
And Kaori's having to tell her, don't think like that. You need to go out there and be confident. We are going to protect you, aren't we, Ryo?
And initially he's like, no. And then Kaori's like, are you sure? Have you seen the CEO? And she pulls out her phone and...
And to be fair, the CEO in this movie is played by Ayame Misaki, who's an actress that's been doing tokusatsu and modeling for a very long time now.
So she's in this really nice evening gown in this picture, and Ryo's like, alright, I guess. Like, that was all it took to win him over.
Yeah, like, he took one look at her and he was like, oh, okay, I'm going, yeah.
But this does mean that they have to leave Shinjuku for 2 seconds.
And they have to head over to Odaiba, which, again, like, that's where Komiket is held, isn't it?
Happens, yeah. It used to be many, many years ago that's where the Tokyo Game Show also happened. So there are events like this is just a really big event hall, right? I was in there a grand total of 1 time for the Tokyo Game Show in 2006.
But here it's a make-believe event that they've invented for this movie called Cosplay Wonderfest Odaiba. It's a 2-day event held on, and we can see the dates there, April 20th and April 21st, and we assume this is the first day, so we know what day this happened on April 20th. 420, blaze it.
It's probably the smallest cosplay event in Japan I have ever seen.
Even outside of Akihabara.
Like, I understand this is happening very probably at Tokyo Big Sight, but that is the least amount of people I've ever seen in Tokyo Big Sight.
Like, it's the most and least amount of people at the same time to try and convince you this is a legitimate cosplay meetup event.
I mean, they have definitely...
held by a conglomerate.
They've definitely put forth the effort to make it look like a conglomerate set up this really big LED stage with lights and music and big displays of posters and wall scrolls and just really pushing the hell out of their cosmetic products.
And to be fair, to the credit of the movie, they did manage to get a fair smattering of actual cosplayers here in the background of this next set of scenes.
Yeah, it doesn't look to me like it was just extra actors that they put into costumes. These, I believe, are cosplayers that they roped in that already had their own costumes.
Right, like now this I can speak to because I've done that, oddly enough, yes, also for Netflix.
Right.
Where we had to pretend we were at a convention and they asked us, bring in your own costumes because we need to make this look as legitimate as possible. So if you had something from an anime or a video game, bring it out and we got to fill this place up. And we just made a quick note of the costumes we did recognize.
Well, you also recognized possibly at least one cosplayer themselves, right?
Not by name, but I've at least seen them around.
Right, there's a guy cosplaying as Rider Man in the background.
Well, very specifically, an original version of Rider Man from Kamen Rider by way of if Rider Man had been designed for the first and the next movies.
Right. And you are pretty sure you've seen that guy.
Yeah, I'm 95% sure I've seen that guy's pictures before.
So, another friend of ours pointed out, too, somewhere in the background of that scene, there is a Filipino cosplayer. I believe their name is pronounced Tress.
Oh, no, that's the name of the series they're cosplaying from.
Okay. Is Tress the name of this series?
Tresse. Yeah.
Cosplaying from Tresse. So it's an actual Filipino cosplayer that is apparently very well known that also was there. So these, I strongly believe, are real cosplayers, and they're definitely cosplaying real things from real things.
Like the ones that we noted aside from Rider Man, we also saw a Creeper from Minecraft, Kenshin. That's another jump title.
Yeah,
less said about Kenshin, the better.
Kenshin himself is not what the problem is.
Yeah. We see some people from One Piece, from the Fate series, from Iron-Blooded Orphans, Gundam there. We see at least one Kirito walking around, somebody from the Nier series, Bandora from Ranger, who we know over here as Rita Repulsa, somebody from Oshinoko, and somebody from Ruby.
From Ruby, yeah.
The blonde
Yang.
one. Yang, yeah. So at minimum, we noted those, and then a couple of, military otaku.
Yeah, and I'm sure there's gotta be ones that we don't recognize because we can only consume so much media. I'm sure other people who have other knowledge of other series probably would point out different ones and be like, I know that one. I can guarantee you we've just missed a handful. I'm sure that we have.
And for what it's worth, Milk/Kurumi and the 2 other cosplayers that have been contracted to headline this event, they themselves are made-up characters that this Lore Cosmetics company have created for this event, but they just kind of look like knockoff versions of the characters from Magic Knight Rayearth.
They do. I mean, they're very much red, blue, green. It's very Magic Knight Rayearth-like. So they're not real characters. They're OCs for this cosmetic company, and Milk is Kurumi is cosplaying as the red one. Whatever the name of the red one. It feels like they've just decided, this is Milk. And then they don't, like, because...
Well, no, Milk is her cosplay alias.
I know, and that's what I'm telling you, is that when they eventually get to the part where they introduce her, like, they don't introduce the character. They say, this is Milk, here she is, here's the cosplayer Milk, and then, like, who is this who is this character? Who are you?
I don't know. I don't even know.
I don't know. Makeup character Red.
Yes.
Number 1.
Red number 1. That's also the name of the color in the palette.
Uh-huh.
But backstage at this event, we see that Ryo is kind of sort of acting like his old self, in that he's just oogling every set of titties and ass that he sees walking around, and he's just in heaven right now.
He's thankfully not, like, lunging at anybody, but he has seen some booty, and, like, it's a little gross, but, like, at least he's not
groping anybody.
He's not going after anybody. So fine, okay, I'll give him that much of a pass.
But like in most City Hunter episodes, there has to be multiple aspects to the two people that eventually are City Hunter working on this case. So Ryo is going around not necessarily completely incognito, but it helps to have somebody on the inside. So to that end, Kaori is here at this event, now having been put in full cosplay. We can only assume as either this company's other OC character or some other made-up Akira Toriyama looking character based off the wig they gave her.
Yeah, they've made some shit up. So now Kaori is in even shorter hair, right? And now, guess what? They're about to give her a prop hammer. And
prop wooden hammer.
At first I was like, that's all it is. It's just like a prop. It's not even real. But they've got her like swinging around. She's like, oh, okay, I guess I could get into having this hammer. And she like accidentally clocks Ryo with it. And he's like, ow, hey, what's up with that? Quit it. Ow. And it's a mistake. She doesn't try to do it again right now.
Yeah, but now she has been given her hammer. And this is the thing that when we were talking about this over the last several weeks, that people on the YouTube comments were complaining about where the hell's the hammer. Well, here it is.
It's here. I mean, it's not as practical in usage as it is in the anime, but they put it in there.
They gave her a wooden hammer.
They gave her a hammer. It's not even full wood, honestly. It's clearly like hollow and
maybe
airy.
It's more likely foam.
Very likely. I would say it's foam. But yes, it's designed to look like wood. It's not too different from when we worked on making my prop hammer for Kaori for cosplay purposes, right? And it's clear it's not wood. It's not wood, but I did my damnedest to paint it to look like there's wood grain on it.
Yeah,
I tried really,
but it's
really
just
hard.
foam board.
It is just foam board, yeah, and a PVC pipe.
Yeah. So we jump to the CEO telling everybody, hey, everybody do a good job today. Thank you all for coming out. But the CEO and a guy behind her who's with this pharmaceutical company, we don't get this guy's name. He's just creepily following around the CEO the whole time.
Right.
They go up to Milk/Kurumi and introduce themselves like, oh my god, I'm such a big fan. I had to have you in the show. We needed you and your 30,000 followers to be a part of this.
Quit blowing smoke up her ass. But whatever, she believes it, I guess.
And before she can tell Milk anything else, Ryo has now put on his costume, which, as we've mentioned before from the trailers and the commercials, is his cowboy outfit with the cowboy hat and the big old horse head coming off his dick.
And the horse has his business card in its mouth, so Ryo removes the business card from the horse's mouth and gives it to CEO lady. And it's the business card that we might have already talked about this before.
We did, yeah.
When it came out in the trailer, it says the Saiba Group, business corporation, whatever. It identifies the building that he lives out of, that it's in Shinjuku.
That it's his building.
That it's his he owns that building. That is his building. I think that's great detail that they've added into this movie.
But he introduces himself as Milk's manager and tries to offer his services like, hey, anything you need, baby, I'm magic.
And so she's already having a totally different conversation, and he's still going, anything you need, call me. And she's still she's talking to somebody else about something else already.
Yeah, the CEO has moved on, but Ryo is still trying to get in there. But now that she's finally walked off, Ryo goes up to Kurumi and tells her, hey, you're gonna do great, just get out there and kill it. And he's like holding her by the head, like cupping her head in his hands.
You've got this. This will be important later. Anyway, Kaori smacks him
with the hammer.
Is like, all right, get off of her. She's got to go do a thing. Let her go do her thing.
And so the event starts, and everybody goes out there. Kurumi's a little nervous, but they love her, and they love her costume. And Ryo and Kaori are patrolling the audience while this event is going on.
It kind of feels like Milk, she's obviously used to posting on social media, but she has never done, like, in America, we would do cosplay stage shows. We would
like
do
a masquerade
like a
or
masquerade, right? The cosplay contest where you get up on stage and you walk up there and you either do a few poses and walk away, or you perform a skit. One of the two. Right? Like, that is very common in America. I don't believe that is as common in Japan to do it like that.
Well, it is common in other Asian countries more so.
I think Southeast Asia especially.
Especially, yeah. Like Indonesian cons, they do that real hard.
Yeah.
Like, I've seen some amazing skits out of them.
Right. And I just think it's less common in Japan. So I think that she is not used to getting up on a stage in front of people to show off her cosplay. But finally, once she's done like a cute pose, and then it turned out that everybody loved her, then she was suddenly like, oh, actually, this is pretty great. And then she was like really into it, and she starts kind of dancing and posing, and like things are going really well. But then looking around, and there's these weirdos
that are trying to get close to the stage here. And
this is a very common problem, right?
This is great, this next scene right here.
So there's a very common problem amongst cosplay events, especially in Japan.
At Comiket too.
Photographers are fucking weird-ass motherfuckers. Just, like, I cannot begin to describe my distaste with these fucking photographers, man. It makes me so fucking angry. And clearly, this movie addresses it too, like, we are telling you stupid weirdo motherfuckers, this is fucking weird. This is weird what you do. You try to get upskirt shots of cosplayers all the fucking time.
So what happens here is that these three guys are being real creepy and approaching the stage with their big-ass backpacks. Ryo catches that they're trying to do this and knows immediately what they're trying to do. And he tells Kaori over that they've got, like, in-ear mics now, like two-way radio. And he tells Kaori, keep on the lookout. I'm gonna go deal with these creeps. And she's like, whoa, where are they? And you see these three otaku, clearly they're otaku, come up to the stage, draw out these big-ass telelens cameras, and, like, in a coordinated movement, get down, pull out the cameras, get ready to try and get upskirt shots of Kurumi, and thankfully Ryo is there with his big-ass horse dick face head thing, and for several shots, blocks them from seeing up Kurumi's skirt.
It's great. It's great because it's like, it's totally something Ryo would do, but also it's a 180 of the kind of thing Ryo would do, because if this was the anime, he would almost be participating, and instead, he's like, you know what? No, this is fucking weird and gross. I'm gonna protect her because that's my job. This is what I agreed to do. I said I was gonna protect this lady, and this is how I have decided, like, it includes this. This is also protecting her.
But the thing is, too, it's not out of character because the way he's doing it is incredibly comical. Because he's going into all these weird, crazy poses. He's doing cartwheels. He's getting all up in the camera with the horse head.
And they're just like, come on, Red, get out of the way. And he's like, no.
And so he keeps doing this, but as he's going around protecting the edge of the stage from these guys, up in the rafters we see that both Brown Bear and Scorpion are now here on the grounds.
And that's not good.
So Scorpion's out in the crowd waiting for her signal. Brown Bear has gone up into the rafters of this very high ceiling and is posted up there with a sniper rifle.
Yeah, and we don't know what is being fired out of the sniper rifle. We assume initially it's like a normal-ass bullet.
Well, no. We do see what it is. The first thing he shoots, we see that he's got a load of tranquilizer
darts.
Right,
that's what I'm saying, is when he fires it, that's when we know what he's firing is tranq darts, because Ryo comes in and kind of cartwheels to protect Kurumi from the shot, and it lands in the horse's head that is on his dick, and it's clearly a tranq dart. So now he's got to keep doing this, because this dude won't stop firing at her.
And this whole scene right here is so well choreographed, because Ryo is constantly in motion here, and we see, from the character standpoint, he's just going with it on the fly, adapting to whatever's happening. So he's immediately gone from having to protect the edge of the stage from the photographers to cartwheeling onto the stage and dancing around and with Kurumi to make it look like it's a dance, but at the same time, he is actually taking or pushing her out of the way of these tranquilizer dart shots.
I mean, shockingly, nobody has stopped the show. It's crazy how at no point in time during the rest of this sequence, does anyone ever stop the show.
Like, there was no security at this show.
Yeah, this is pretty shit. This is bad for Japan. Japan usually has immaculate security.
Well, I think there's a reason for it, but we'll eventually get to it.
Sure.
And after enough shots have come out from the tranquilizer dart sniper rifle, Ryo finally decides to get Kurumi off the stage, albeit playfully, so it looks like it's all part of the show.
Right.
He gets her backstage, hands her off to Kaori, like, hey, get her out of here. But unfortunately, now Scorpion is back there and has revealed herself to be the person from the very beginning who tried to get Ryo to find Kurumi for her.
So Ryo is like, oh, it's you, the lady in the sweater, and now we must kung fu fight.
Yeah, because now she busts out a whip. I get it, Scorpion whip. I see the theme here.
Yeah, I understand. And, like, she starts whipping objects at him, and so Ryo's like, okay, you gotta get Kurumi out of here, Kaori. Just go with her, go even farther backstage, just get out of here. I'm gonna deal with this lady.
So Kaori takes Kurumi into, like, the office hallways of this building that she's at, runs into the CEO and that one cop that was with Saiko at the beginning, Ito.
So you, as the audience, are thinking, oh great, at least Ito is here.
And so Kaori has to quickly explain to the CEO, hey, there's somebody here trying to hurt Kurumi, can we help her? Ito identifies himself as a police officer and is like, hey, I'm a cop, I can get her out of here. And Kaori, assuming that everything's fine, is like, alright, good, great, get out of here, go.
By the way, ACAB.
ACAB.
Anyway, so, mind you, Ryo is still fighting Scorpion, and this is starting to transition out back in front of this audience. This fight sequence is pretty cool.
This is a hardcore fight sequence.
This is pretty good. This might be the best one of the movie, honestly.
It's one of, like, there isn't a bad fight scene
They're
in this
all
whole
good.
movie.
They are all good.
But I think, personally, this one's my favorite.
This is definitely where this movie shines, like I said it earlier, but there's nothing wrong with the fights and the gunfights and stuff in Nicky Larson, but if there is one area in which the Netflix movie definitely shines above Nicky Larson, it's these action sequences. These are just really well choreographed and really well shot.
Yeah, because Ryo is ducking in ways that I've only seen professionals do it, because they had professionals working on this. Like, he's dodging, he's bobbing, he's weaving, he's taking shots back to her. He gives as good as he gets. She can't really get an edge on him. She's throwing knives at him, he's throwing them back, and at one point she finally does kind of have him like in a lock, trying to get the knife in his chest, and Kaori finally runs back on stage to see what's going on,
and that she actually tries to use the hammer in a practical way, and she unfortunately never gets that opportunity, because
now at this point up in the rafters, Brown Bear has switched off from tranquilizer rounds, which he has now used up all of, to actual bullets.
So he is now traced on Kaori, and Ryo is realizing, ah shit, Kaori is running up on stage, this is bad.
And at this very moment, this is the thing that I both love about this movie and have to give it a mark off against for just the littlest thing, because when up in the rafters Brown Bear racks the bolt to load the bullet, at that moment on stage Ryo visibly reacts to it.
Which is good, that is correct, right?
Because super hearing.
But where I think Nicky Larson shines is that it uses the sound effect directly from the TV series, that kind of rattling,
the super hearing sound effect, and it uses it multiple times in that movie.
Right, exactly.
And I feel like that was all that was missing here. It was
so smart. Yeah, if you put that sound effect on top of what Ryo just did here in this scene, it would have been like, oh my god, that is perfect. We would have put it all the way over. It's still very good. I don't want to be like, oh no, they fucked it all up, because he did exactly what he was supposed to do.
Yeah, if you know what you're looking at, it's fine. He did exactly what he does in the anime.
Right. It's just, man, that sound effect would have been really, really good.
And then we kind of go into bullet time here, where Kaori is just kind of unaware, looking basically into where the scope has itself trained on her.
Well, it feels like Kaori understands that is where Ryo is concerned the problem is. But she doesn't know what it is she's looking for.
Like, she doesn't have time to contemplate what the danger is right now.
Right.
Because Ryo knows he's being shot at right now while he's fighting Scorpion.
Right. So now now Rio has to stop dealing with Scorpion, right?
And like in like a split second this happens.
Yes.
Kaori is looking up towards the ceiling, trying to see where stuff is going. Brown Bear fires the bullet, and as Kaori is looking up, almost trying to see where it's from, she gets shoved out of the way by Rio.
And the bullet, like, it grazes his shoulder. Does it not also hit her hammer like it...
Yeah, it's two shots. It's two shots.
Yeah.
The first shot, as she's trying to do the opportunity attack, breaks the hammer handle.
Yeah.
Which is what causes her to look up at the rafters.
And the bullet ends up in the monitor.
The LED screen behind.
LED screen that has been displaying these colorful, bright images for the cosplay show, right? So now it's just a black screen. Now there's nothing. This whole event is fucked. It's ruined.
Because now everybody is noticing, hey, there's something weird going on here.
But they're all still just standing around like, man, this is crazy. Is this supposed to be happening?
This is hardcore.
Wow. For a makeup event? Wow, this is intense.
But yeah, as that bullet is coming, Rio shoves her out of the way, takes it in the shoulder, immediately fires back, and takes out the scope of the sniper rifle.
Rio fires a second shot, gets the dude in the hand. He is now useless.
Yeah, because it's nicked his wrist.
There's no holding up
on his firing hand.
Yeah, there's no holding up that sniper rifle anymore.
So now he's effectively taken out Brown Bear without killing him, which is exactly what Rio would do.
Exactly. Of course, as time goes on and he becomes closer to Kaori, if Kaori's life was legitimately in danger, he wouldn't think twice about just dropping the fucker.
Which we see we're going to see some of that here in a little bit.
Yeah.
But now that Brown Bear has effectively been taken out, he radios to Scorpion because they're on their own two-way radio. I got to get out of here. Retreat, retreat. This whole time Scorpion has had like bone conductor headphones on her head, which for my own sake I really need to get me a pair of those. Those are apparently really good.
We're going to get you the bone phone. Got it.
Don't call it a bone phone. That sounds like Rio's cell phone. He
call Rio up on the bone phone.
The bone phone. Oh my god. Which is different from Phone Bone, which is a character in a Disney Adventures comic.
Yeah, that's true.
That is very true. But now, Scorpion has taken off her headset and is like, nah, screw this, I'm finishing this shit, we're gonna throw down.
Well, no, she tries to leave, and Rio stops her from leaving.
No, you're right.
So, yes, now she's like, okay, fine, let's go.
And they continue to kung fu fight.
There's more knives, shit's getting heavy, and then it looks like she's really about to go in there. She's pulled out some more of this vial of angel dust.
A syringe.
The syringe with angel dust, and she's about to inject herself, except now suddenly she's looking kind of loopy and a little bit tired, and then she looks down at her side, and at some point Rio, I guess, has just taken one of the trank darts off of the horse's head that has been collecting trank darts from earlier in the fight.
Which eventually she did knock off him. She knocked the horse's head off him.
Yeah, well, at some point he took one of those trank darts and just got her in the side, and like she didn't notice, I guess, until she's realizing, damn it, I'm passing out. She's just gone.
And she's like yelling out his name like, Saiba! And then dramatically passes out in his arms like friggin' Shakespeare.
But the audience is like, holy shit,
that was amazing! Woo! And Rio's just playing it off like, thank you! Oh, this is great! Give it up for my co-host! Yeah, it's great. What do you think of that? Which is, again, perfectly in character for Rio. But once he gets off stage, he goes to check on Kaori to be like, how's Kurumi doing? Oh, it's fine. I gave her over to a police officer.
And he's like, you gave her over to who? And Kaori doesn't understand why that's a problem.
Because nobody told her there were no cops at this event. So well, he's got to like call Sayako.
Yeah, Sayako shows up and she's like, so what cop did you hand her over to?
I didn't get his name or his badge number. I'm sorry.
It's okay, Kaori. You did what you thought was the right thing. You didn't do anything wrong. We're gonna figure this shit out. We're gonna take Scorpion in, go put her in the back of the police car. We're gonna go take her down to place.
Yeah, we're gonna take her in for questioning down at the police station. The unfortunate part is she doesn't make it to the police station.
We do see a little bit of time of her in the back of the police car
as they're driving away from the event.
And Sayako's like, you better be ready to spill everything. Well, unfortunately, we can only assume that Union Teope has been like, well, Scorpion's been captured.
Yeah.
So now we can't afford to have them questioning her. We gotta get rid of her.
Nobody talks.
So remember, they got the bombs in the back of the neck, and Scorpion also understands that, like, well, this is just how it's gotta be, and even she's like, for the Union! Like, she's scared, but she knows that this is what this is.
Like, there's no getting out of it.
And the camera goes to the outside of the car, and you see the pop, and it's just an explosion of blood in the back window.
And for what it's worth, I think Sayako and the other police woman in the back seat should have been more covered in blood.
There should have been
considering how much blood was on the back of the window.
They also should have been much more concerned about what just happened, because they get out and they're just like, huh.
Like they were the wrong kind of shell-shocked, you know? And not to say that there's not blood on Sayako, there's a tiny drop on her face, and there's some on her shoulder.
Which you can barely see it on her shoulder because she's wearing black, and so it just looks wet.
Yeah.
You know?
So, like, I would have redone that.
I would have made a change somehow in their reaction or what it looked like after.
Like, I would have been way more freaked out.
Sure.
Like, even if I'm a cop, if an incendiary device just basically went off a foot away from me.
Yeah.
Like, you think about 3 people in the backseat of a car, she
been
was really friggin' close.
I would have been spooked by the noise alone.
But
let alone adding blood and suddenly this person no longer has a head.
And,
right?
like, blood and brain bits, like, where's the rest of it?
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
And we find that Ito, somehow, we don't know which way it goes. Either Ito contacted the Union, or the Union contacted Ito. One way or another, something happened, and he has basically sold out Kurumi back to the Union and dropped him off with some of their agents.
All cops are bad. Like, I don't know how else to explain this to you people. I mean, we've dealt with dirty cops in the series before as well.
At least 2 or 3.
So this is not new. This is not something to be shocked about. Like, oh my god, they put a dirty cop in here. Yeah, of course they did. She's in some warehouse, which again is very normal for City Hunter to do. I think it would have been this great extra element if we heard that it was a warehouse in Yokohama.
A warehouse on the wharf. Like, if we just heard the sound of a ship horn in the background.
Like, if we had heard some of that, that would have been an extra layer. But it's fine. Like, this is very normal for somebody to get kidnapped and they stuffed them in a warehouse somewhere. So Ito is now talking to 2 dudes from Union Teope who have shown up and they've handed him a briefcase full of money.
And he's like, all right, don't talk to me anymore. I've done my part. Peace, I'm out.
Lose my number. And they're like, oh, we'll do more than that. And then suddenly the briefcase is beeping, not too dissimilar to the last 2 people with bombs in their necks.
And bye-bye, Ito.
You just hear the...
No, you don't even hear it.
Well, you see the flash of light.
Yeah.
You see there has been an explosion, and we can only assume Ito is gone. We never see that man ever again.
Well, we do, but he's a corpse.
Yeah.
So now we're back at the apartment, and Ryo is patching up his own shoulder, and he gets a call from Sayako, and it's worth noting that on the caller ID on his cell phone, it doesn't just say Sayako, it says Sayako 38 favors owed, and then the little, like...
anime stress mark that, like, is like, oh, I'm mad.
My veins are popping out.
Yeah.
So he answers the phone like, hey, Sayako, what up? And she's like, hey, chick's dead.
Oh, that sucks. Did she say anything? Not really. We didn't get to question her. She just said something about a union. These guys are unhinged. I don't know what is up with that. And Ryo is like, well... bye, and he just hangs up on her. I think it is entirely possible, like, we don't get confirmation in this movie, but just us knowing what Ryo is like through the context of other media, it's possible Ryo already has connected the dots. We don't really know for sure here in this film, but I think he gets it.
Because during the fight with Scorpion, he's asking her, who are you working for? Don't make me beat it out of you.
Who is this union? He knows that there is a union, but he doesn't know which union. But I already think he has a suspicion, but he doesn't want to just take off running on something that he doesn't have confirmed.
Like, in my head, the way it comes across is that he's got enough pieces to assume it's Union Teope, but it's one of those things where he wants to be wrong. He wants to so be wrong that it's not them.
So yeah, that is an assumption, but I think it's a pretty good assumption.
But yeah, now that he's gotten off the phone with Sayako, he goes up to the roof because now he's having to deal with this shit. Like, it's getting real heavy real fast right now.
Maybe he's even thinking back on Union Teope at this moment. Like, maybe that's why he's got to go up to the roof to think about it, you know? We don't know, but I think that's a logical conclusion to come to.
Kaori follows him up to the roof. She's feeling a little bad about herself, like, hey, this is all kind of my fault, isn't it? I let her get captured. And Ryo tells her, look, just go home. You don't want any of this. My concern here is your brother's last words to me. He told me to look out for you. You need to go home.
And then she starts getting real emotional and putting everything out here on Front Street, like, you know, he kept saying he was gonna take care of me, but in the end, I always thought I was gonna take care of him because he was just a terrible liar, and he was always getting into trouble, and he was always getting hurt, and I don't know why he's keeping secrets from me. Like, I knew we weren't related, so why does that even matter? And I'm sitting here going,
like, whoa, what the hell is this?
Whoa.
Because we need to back this up for a second. If you have been listening to this podcast, or if you've been keeping up with City Hunter, especially over the last several episodes, it is a very big sticking point in the original anime that Kaori does not know that she is adopted.
Right. That was supposed to have been revealed to her, and then Makimura never got to do it. Then Ryo felt like, okay, so I guess now it's my job that I need to tell her. And he eventually gets to a point where he's like, you know what, I can't do it either. I can't break that news to her. Then, she's got a blood sister out there somewhere who has figured out that Kaori is her biological sister, and she comes up to Kaori and tries to tell her, she successfully tells her, I am your sister, and Kaori dismisses it. However, she gets to a point by the end of that episode where she's like, well, if she was my blood sister, actually, maybe that would kind of be okay. But then she just kind of goes on with her life, you know? It doesn't matter to her whether she was or was not related to Makimura.
And here, she does say, right after she says, I knew the whole time we weren't related, why couldn't he just tell me? I still considered us family anyway.
So to that end, sure, the sentiment remains kind of the same, but I just feel like this is such a big deal that it is an entirely different, like, we have recontextualized what Kaori does and does not know. This is kind of a big deal, in my opinion.
Like, if she was reaching it like an assumption, like he might have told me something like that, like if she was still on the fence about what it was she was or wasn't about to hear from Makimura, that would have been different. But her saying definitively, I knew we weren't related.
Why did she already know that?
It's such a deviation.
It would have been nice to know how it is she already knew that.
Right. And I feel like they changed that just because for dramatic effect, but it doesn't actually add to her character. And if anything, maybe it's because we're so connected to this, because we do this show, that it feels a little bit, this part right here, like a betrayal.
Right. In Nikki Larson, the topic doesn't even come up, and maybe that's where, like, because it doesn't come up, you could take away points for it not coming up at all, but then at the same time, I feel like...
You didn't try to change it.
You didn't try to change anything, whereas in this Netflix movie, it comes up, and you changed it, and you were so close, and you were so good on so many other things, and then you came along and, like, this is a definitive character trait about this character.
Or a character fact,
Or a character fact, right. And, I don't know, maybe it doesn't change how good the movie itself is. The movie is still great, but at the same time, I'm like, you kind of missed the mark just on that, like
we felt kind of blindsided by that, quite honestly.
Yeah, this would have been so easy to nail, and I feel like, oh, why did you make this hard left? I don't really understand, but okay, fine.
But she says that, now. And then drives it, like, she gets back on the lane, she's on the shoulder of the highway, and now she's driving it back in, like, I don't care what you say, I don't care what my brother said, he was my family, and I'm gonna go get revenge for him, and for Kurumi getting kidnapped, I'm gonna go do this with you or without you, Ryo.
And this seems to have actually genuinely moved Ryo. So he goes back down into the shooting range at the basement level of the apartment complex, goes and finds Makimura's gun, collects some other things downstairs, brings them back up into his apartment where Kaori is sitting and waiting, then starts prepping her, like military prepping her.
Like, puts a flak jacket on her and tells her, alright, I've decided to go ahead and accept your proposal, we're gonna go get revenge, let's go get these assholes.
Which, I don't know if Ryo and other pieces of media would have ever said to Kaori, I'm gonna let you come with me and come get revenge, but, I understand the sentiment, it's not bad.
It's just the way that he tried so hard in the original to keep her out of it, he went to go get revenge.
Right, exactly.
Which leads to all of episode 5 there.
But we do need to have them work together in this movie.
Well, yeah, you have to make that conceit, though.
There's only so much time you're able to work with here in a film, because this isn't a series. This is why I do wish this had been a series.
I do too,
and not a movie.
I think if they had made that distinction, that made that choice to make it longer, it would have benefited in the long run. 'Cause
I agree.
Admittedly, we're having to do a lot within just an hour and 45 minutes.
Right. But I think in the grand scheme of things, they're not doing a bad job. It's still a very competent movie. It's still one of the 2 best City Hunter movies that have been made yet.
Let's not get that twisted here. We're still very much enjoying it.
Yes.
And now we're seeing across town that Kurumi is now finally coming to, and she has been captured by the CEO who's been in on it the whole time, we're finding out.
Oh, wow. Really? I mean, come on now.
Yeah, it wasn't that hard to see.
Yeah, I mean, if you start getting a DM from this lady and then she starts blowing smoke up your ass about, oh, I love you and your 30,000 followers, and to me at like almost 20,000 on Twitter, I'm like, 30,000 ain't that much. Shut the fuck up. You wouldn't reach out to somebody like, wow, we could really use the 30,000. No, you go for the person with like 500,000. What are you doing?
100,000. Damn, like, come on now. But she's basically telling Kurumi, well, we just needed you because your DNA, your blood, whatever, has managed to stabilize the compound that we need to make angel dust. So we're harvesting it out of you, and we're gonna make more. And hey, creepy guy behind me, check it out. We're totally gonna do it, you and me. We're gonna take over the world.
The guy that we've been seeing peppered throughout this that is running this branch of the Union, right?
Well, now we know he's working for the Union, because the first time we saw him, he was just listed as a Seta Pharmaceuticals rep. But now we're seeing he's also...
But he was the guy in the chair!
We're only just now finding that out, though.
I mean, that's not a hard conclusion. Like, he's wearing really similar clothes.
Yeah, like, he is, but this is where it's all coming together right now.
Anyway, so he's got a scalpel in his hand, and, like, we didn't even really see the cut because, like, it was the way that her body was blocking the camera, right? And he just took a swipe at her neck, and that's all it took, because it went for the artery.
The jugular.
And she's just kind of gushing blood, and she just collapses over, and yet she is still so determined to have this stuff, this kind of angel dust blood mixture stuff out of Kurumi's body, that even while she's dying in a pool of her own blood, she's gripping this thing so hard, and dude over here who cut her neck is trying to pull it out of her hand, and he's like, huh, well, you're awfully resilient. Let me just stomp the shit out of your hand. Your hand will be fine, by the way, but that glass vial will be shattered.
And we're seeing now that this guy, who's clearly, maybe, the head of this branch of Union Teope, has called in a mop-up operation.
So I guess it kind of seems like all they really needed was the research that they were doing.
Right.
And otherwise, they don't want any trace of what has been done down here. Like, this also includes other test subjects.
Including Kurumi's friend, who's still alive at this point, but not anymore.
Yeah, like, we sure did, we just kind of brushed over that guy. Oh, you were looking for a guy, I hope he's okay. Oh, fuck. Like, he didn't even get a line?
No, he gets no lines. Like, we see him, and the CEO confirms he's alive, and then this guy comes in with the mop-up operation. He takes Kurumi, but everybody else has gone down.
Right.
And after everybody has been mowed down, he gets on the phone and calls somebody. The subtitles say it's in Spanish.
But the Spanish sounds kind of weird, and part of me thinks, did they mean Portuguese?
Yeah, because I'm listening to it too, and I know some Spanish. That didn't sound like Spanish.
It didn't. It sounded
He says
weird.
hola.
He does say hola, but hola is also hello in Portuguese. Mind you, it's spelled different. It's spelled without the H at the beginning of hola, but it's pronounced the same. So Portuguese sounds like Spanish, but not Spanish, right? And a lot of words are extremely similar. They have they have the same source language, so they sound extremely similar. And so my thought is that I think the caption editor didn't know the difference between Spanish and Portuguese. Right. And mind you, I don't terribly know what Portuguese sounds like, except that it sounds like fucked up Spanish.
Well, no, like Portuguese, you have to have an ear for it, because if you're not used to it, it does sound really weird. But the more you listen to it, like I've been trying to listen to more Portuguese dubs of tokusatsu and Portuguese music, and so you kind of have to develop an ear for it.
Because Brazilians love the shit out of it. So yeah, you start to hear like it's Spanish but not.
I wouldn't even say that hardly. Like in a lot of ways it's similar, but in a lot of ways it's very different.
I agree. Like
it's got its very unique sound to it.
Right. That's why I think the caption editor just got it wrong. So he's calling somebody in some other country, and we're gonna assume Central America. Again,
right, because that would be better than Mexico. It'd be more south.
Yeah.
And he's trying to take Kurumi, but he notices when he looks at her, she's still wearing the same cosplay outfit that she was wearing back in Odaiba. Mm-hmm. But he's noticing when he looks at her earring, he flips it around around, and there's a little tracer on it.
So now we jump back to the Mini Cooper, and Ryo's got his cell phone up with GPS. I mean, this has now modernized what he used to have in his car, because remember, in the 80s, it's like, holy shit, the Mini Cooper has this enormous
No, it was in the
system.
Panda.
Well, it was in the Panda, you're right. Like, they put it in the Panda, and it was just this enormous fucking thing.
Right.
And it's like, wow, you can trace people?
Whereas now it's like, yeah, I put an AirTag on her. That's all I did.
I put a tiny AirTag. Kaori's like, when did you do that? You remember the cosplay show when I put my hand on her face to tell her you're gonna be great? Yeah, I put this tiny little GPS tag on the back of her earring, and that's when it happened. So now we're gonna go down there and we're gonna find her, yay! And we do this tracking shot of the Mini Cooper. We're following it out of the city,
through the city,
like through the city, and then down into a tunnel.
But before they get down there, they get a phone call from that Akutsu guy from earlier in the movie, who then confirms to Ryo that yes, in fact, the group that is doing this is named Union Teope. And when Ryo hears this, he's like, Reunion Teope, huh? And he doesn't really say anything else, and he doesn't really act like he knows what this group is.
We, as the audience, don't really know that he knows anything. If you have never seen City Hunter before, you would make the assumption that he's just learning this for the first time. But if you do know City Hunter, you're like, why is he acting like he's only heard this for the first time just now? I think there is wiggle room here for anybody who knows City Hunter to think that he is downplaying how much he recognizes what Union Teope is, but also there's wiggle room for you to question, oh, but what were the writers deciding to do? Did they want, like, you don't really know.
I have to assume that based off everything else that he's done throughout the movie, because they have done a very good job of playing up that this is a Ryo that plays down how much he knows.
Yes.
Because he's the one that name-dropped Angel Dust in this movie, I bet he already knows, and he's trying to play it off to Kaori.
It wouldn't make any sense, right? Because if we have seen Child Soldier Ryo already, if you know anything about City Hunter, he's a child soldier because of Union Teope, so he was like a former member. Like, he knows who the fuck Union Teope is. So I'm sitting here going, it would be really strange if Ryo is acting right now like this is the first time he has ever heard of Union Teope. That would be very bizarre.
Because again, even in Nicky Larson, they name-dropped that it was Union Teope that was the guys who killed Makimura.
Right, exactly. They didn't let that one go. And the anime never mentions Union Teope.
The anime proper? No, not until Angel Dust.
Right, and Nicky Larson came out before Angel Dust did. So they, like, did deep dive stuff. They knew manga, right? It wasn't just the anime. They knew manga shit, and they put that in their movie, and they said, oh yeah, I know Union Teope, and I know Angel, because Makimura was trying to figure out what was going on with this drug and shit. Like, they knew what they were talking about, right? So it would be really fucking weird if Ryo didn't know who Union Teope is.
So to me, in this movie, that's the second weird point, next to Kaori knowing about Makimura not being her blood relative. But this one has a little more wiggle room.
There's
You're
some
right.
wiggle room, because if there ever is to be a second movie, if that ever happens, you could just say, yeah, I was just trying to protect you from things that happened to me in Union Teope, or some shit.
Yeah,
right?
like, you can still write your way around this. It's just a little weird right here because we don't get any explanation, but there's wiggle room for even that.
Right.
But all this really does is confirm to Ryo that he and Kaori are going in the right direction, so they end up at the lore building and going through this underground tunnel. Lore building.
Yeah.
Into this underground tunnel where they're doing all the lab research, and they find all the dead bodies.
And then they find nobody. Like, it's otherwise empty.
Yeah.
This place just feels abandoned.
Up until it's not, because they're really not doing a good job of, like, sneaking around. Like they're stomping around.
Well, and Kaori's out here shouting, hello! Anybody out there? And Ryo's not even stopping her. He's not like, shut the fuck up. Like,
No, like, he's stomping around, jumping from one partition to another, trying to look around.
Right.
So, no duh that an armed troop of SWAT guys, who are clearly working for Union Teope, draw their guns on them, and this is where you see the line from the trailers, like, who ordered Uber Eats?
Uber Eats, Des.
Who ordered the Young Chicken? Oh, shit, we're getting fired at. All right. And we go into this gun action sequence.
Right.
Which is the one I've been sharing the most over on social media right now. which is incredibly well done.
It is a very well done gunfight sequence, especially. And I was commenting during the first viewing we did, like, man, it would be great if they used music from the show. I wonder why they're not using music from the show.
And so the music in this scene starts, and it just sounds like a techno track.
Yeah, I'm just like, man, this could have been better. We could have done footsteps here, and then I'm like, oh wait, what the fuck?
Yeah, because then you hear it go into da 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 da. I mean, admittedly, not with the old rhythm, and we're like, oh shit, it's footsteps.
I'm not the biggest fan of this version, but I do kind of wish there was a clean version that I could listen to somewhere to be like, no, let me pick the rest of this out here, because otherwise we're hearing a bunch of explosions and gunfire and shit.
But you can clearly hear the footsteps in the night. Like, there's no lyrics.
There's no lyrics. It's just this techno electronic.
But you can clearly tell what it is. It's footsteps. Yeah. And so, to that end, this is the one other piece of music that this movie has, aside from what we know is coming here at the very end. But at least they remembered footsteps goes on action scenes.
Which is great, because I feel like even the anime forgot we do this. Like, after a certain point, I think even in Season 2, somewhere in the middle of Season 2, they forgot footsteps.
Yeah, because I remember in my notes, I was having to write it in less and less.
Yeah, like, it's all throughout Season 1, it's through maybe halfway through Season 2, and then they just straight up abandon it the way they abandoned M&M's. You know what would have made this movie perfect? Is if we had more advertising for M&M's.
Yeah, if Kaori had just gotten a bag of peanut M&M's, it would have been great.
Oh well, missed opportunity. If I make a City Hunter movie,
you're gonna remember the M&M's.
I'm gonna remember a bag of M&M's. Yeah.
But yeah, Ryo's here. He's just wrecking shit, and he's using, again, this is a new instance of him using multiple weapons. Which, to be fair, he did also use multiple weapons here in the finale of Season 2. But yeah, he's using like 2 Glocks, an SMG, his 357, and then he picks up an M16 off the ground. So he's using.
That's a lot of weapons. That's not to say that in the anime he has never used other weapons.
Like I just said.
It is great that he's using all of these other weapons. I'm not used to it coming in such high repetition, one after the other.
He's switching off so fast.
Yeah.
Like, I'm hard-pressed to think of another action movie where this is happening. And I don't want to miss this point. To their credit, when these riot troopers, these SWAT guys are shooting at Ryo, they all do a tactical reload.
Right.
Which is something that I've only seen in, like, Heat. Michael Mann's Heat, where you're seeing attack reload like Val Kilmer does on the street when he's shooting at the cops.
Right.
And so, like, that's an amazing attention to detail there, that they remembered to do that. But yeah, like, he goes through all these guns, he's taking out dudes, Kaori's throwing him new rounds of ammo. When he switches off to the Magnum, he's just wrecking shit. He's doing the same stuff he does in the anime. He's ricocheting around cylinders of gas and taking the bolts off it.
He gets some really high air at one point. Like, he launches himself up off of like a wall or something.
Like, he like jumps and gets an amazing vertical.
He gets like 16 feet in the air.
Something like that, yeah.
And then
to blow this tank.
And then does this side jump and fires at this tank. It was great. It was great. At a certain point in time, Kaori's trying to push a tank over onto some people, but the tank is like hot to the touch. Another enemy comes up to try and get her, and what does Ryo do exactly? Because Ryo's the one that pushes him into this tank.
He ricochets the shot to hit the guy to make him knock into the tanks.
At some point, Kaori has to pick up this big lead pipe, which, you know, I wish it was a hammer, but I understand they're trying to be practical. Fine.
Like, she takes out the last guy.
She takes out the last guy with this pipe. Like, it's a really good, really solid, well-shot, well-edited action sequence.
Yeah, absolutely.
This is where, like, I feel like at about this point in Nicky Larson, they do have a very good shootout scene. It is very good.
Yeah, at about this point in that movie, too, yeah.
But I don't know. I think this one is more well-rounded action, I guess.
Well, the major difference between the two is that Nicky Larson's shootout, which I also very much enjoy, is more comical.
It is. I was about to say, yeah, there's definitely more comedy happening there. You're supposed to feel like, oh man, this is cool and this is fun.
Yeah.
Like, that is definitely a fun movie. This one is a very serious, holy shit, look at this action action. Wah!
Like, this is closer to some John Wick shit.
Yeah.
Quite honestly. Like, everybody out there being like, I didn't get enough John Wick shit from Monkey Man. No, watch this scene. You'll get your John Wick on.
So this is just another comparison to Nicky Larson insofar as both of these movies are doing similar things in different ways, and neither one of them are wrong or bad.
No, both of them are different. They're different, but they're both good in their own way. So they make their way over to this elevator that leads back up into the building proper, and here we see Guy who has not been named, the CEO guy.
And he never will.
Which, to their credit, very much lines up with a lot of episodes of City Hunter where the bad guy forgot to get named on screen.
You'll remember several times where we've gone through podcast episodes and been like, hey, what was this bad guy's name?
They never said.
They never said. Which, it's irritating for a movie. Okay?
Yes.
It's irritating to have literally the lead bad guy of your film never have a name. He's just Union Teope bad guy.
Yeah.
Like, okay, thanks, movie.
Okay, Steve. Yeah, like whatever. We've only got so much left in this movie. I'm just gonna call him Union Teope Steve for the rest of this.
Okay.
So Steve over here,
Union Teope Steve,
has Kurumi at gunpoint, and he's just kind of egging Kaori and Ryo, trying to get a rise out of them at this point. And Ryo's ready to shoot him down, but when Union Teope Steve sees he can't convince Ryo to come over to Union Teope's side, he activates a little button which pulls Brown Bear out of hiding, and apparently now he's like
out of his Bane tube of
juice or whatever.
Of angel dust juice.
Of Capri Sun version angel juice.
Angel juice?
Yeah, and now he's wearing, like, armor?
Yeah. I just want to make a comment here because he comes out of the angel juice.
Yeah.
Right? Angel dust has made such a big change from what it once was, right?
Because remember, we talked about this on the show.
Understand, when angel dust was first conceived, it was just super cocaine.
Super cocaine,
That's
right.
all it was. Then we got to the Angel Dust movie that came out last year.
Right.
And now, it's still a drug, but a similar
It's more like nanomachines.
Yeah, similar to this, it's an injection, and it's nanomachines, and that's pretty fucking different.
But
wow.
this version is Super Soldier formula.
This is basically Super Soldier formula. It's a liquid.
It looks like the shit they injected into Captain America.
Yeah. And you put Luke Skywalker in this shit, and Luke Skywalker comes out as Captain America.
Right, exactly.
That's what happens. You put him in a Bacta-tank full of angel dust.
Angel juice.
Now it's,
it's angel juice.
I don't even know how you can call it angel dust anymore, because it's not fucking dust. The reason why it was called angel dust was because it was fucking super cocaine.
Yeah, it was a powder.
It was cocaine, Josh. It was literally
I know it was
cocaine.
Look, point being, Ryo now has to fight off a roided out brown bear and tell Kaori to give chase after Union Teope, Steve, and Kurumi as they've gone up the elevator up to the top of this building. Mm-hmm. And for what it's worth, the fight, I think this is the weakest fight. Is Ryo versus Brown Bear here.
Yeah, I actually, I've seen this movie twice now. I'm struggling to remember how it goes. Because
there's not a lot to it.
Yeah.
They struggle for a bit, and then Ryo eventually makes him swallow a grenade.
Oh, yeah, that happens. And then he shoots him in the chest.
Which doesn't pierce the armor, but it's enough, because it's a 357, to knock him back away from Ryo.
Into, a pool.
And it gives him enough time for the grenade to go off and blow his head up.
A big explosion with lots of water.
Yeah.
It looks cool, I guess.
But Kaori has caught up to Union Teope, Steve, and Kurumi up on the top floor, and currently they're waiting, just like the end of Batman 89, for a helicopter to come drop a ladder and get them out of there.
So Steve over here, Union Teope Steve, has closed off the glass wall.
He's got a glass partition in between him and Kaori.
And we saw this in the first scene we saw him in, too, when he was initially addressing Scorpion and Brown Bear. He had this glass partition. He's closed off the glass partition again. Kaori can't get through. I think maybe they're gonna do that classic scene from the manga where Ryo's on one side of the glass and Kaori's on the other, and they, kiss each other through the glass. That doesn't happen.
Yeah, that doesn't happen here, unfortunately.
I was wishing that was gonna be a thing, and and that doesn't happen. But now, Union Teope Steve is just like, for seemingly no reason, just taunting Kaori, right? Like, oh, by the way, I know who you are because I killed your biological dad. And I'm just like, what are we doing right now?
Because he's telling her, hey, your biological dad used to be with Union Teope, and he wanted to leave because he tried to tell us, hey, I got a baby now, I want to leave the company, and so I'm an asshole, so I told on his ass, and we decided to experiment on him, and then he roided out, and then a cop killed him. So guess what? That cop who killed him was Makimura's dad, and then he adopted you. So guess what? You don't have an adoptive dad, you don't have a biological dad, and you don't have a brother, all because of me. It was me, Austin! It was me all along!
And like, okay, that is very compelling, but what are we doing? Like,
yeah, like, this is too much.
Kaori knows everything now?
Kaori's tied to everything now.
I don't, like, this is too, like, if we had built up to this over...
longer than an hour and a half.
Sure. It just feels like we've just overwhelmed her with a shit ton of information. If I didn't already know all of this stuff because we've been talking about it for the last several years, then I would be like, what the fuck are you saying? You're just prattling off all of this shit because we don't see any of this on screen. I get the feeling like if you're brand new to City Hunter, this part could lose you.
Yeah, but also to add to that, originally speaking in the manga, or at least the anime, I need to double check for the manga because I gotta catch up too, Kaori's biological father was not a part of Union Teope in the anime.
Again, yes, you are correct, not in the anime, but we do need to check the manga because I haven't read all the way to the end of the manga. We know that, yes, Makimura's dad
did kill a guy in the line of duty and did adopt the baby.
Got the dad because the dad was a criminal and he was trying to run from the law. That did happen.
But now we've added this whole layer of tying Kaori to the story harder, and I don't know whether or not it serves the story as much as they were hoping it was.
My biggest concern is just that it feels like we have plot dumped too hard without putting it on screen.
Yeah, show, don't tell.
Right. And I feel like it could confuse newcomers to this story.
Right.
Which I feel like right now, especially in America, there's a lot of newcomers to this story because they're realizing, holy shit, you mean there's a City Hunter other than the Jackie Chan one? And like they're actually, I'm watching people actually try this time.
Yeah, like right? People are waking up this weekend.
Yeah, some people are trying. Okay,
right.
I feel like it has not made nearly as big of a splash in America as it should have because it just gets overshadowed by, wow, we had One Piece, and then we had shitty Cowboy Bebop that nobody likes, and like there's other bigger named things, and they're just not paying attention to City Hunter because they never knew what it was in the first place.
Right. But like Kaori's, admittedly, she's freaking out right now. She's so emotional, and she doesn't know what to do. Thankfully, now that Ryo has taken out Brown Bear, he has caught up and he shot through the glass to get at Union Teope Steve.
He's kind of having to do what he had to do in that early episode with Sayako where he had to steal like this jewel or whatever that was on display, but they had a special kind of plastic that was bulletproof, so he had to shoot twice in the exact same spot in order to break through the glass.
Well, yeah, he shoots several rounds, several different, like he's got the quick reloader, he's got several of those, and he shoots through the glass multiple times to break through it enough to weaken it so that he can bust through.
Right.
He shoots the gun out of Union Teope Steve's hand and then gets him in the knee so he can't run.
Right, so now he's collapsed. Kurumi is basically safe, but Kaori is like, this is it. I'm gonna get my revenge right now. And Steve over here is just like, alright bitch, do it. Do it. Do it. Right here. Right in the forehead. Do it. Fucking do it. Pull the trigger. Do it. Do it. And Kaori's like, I'm gonna do it. And he's like, okay, do it. And she's like, I'm gonna do it. And he's like, okay, do it. And then she's like, I'm not gonna do it. And Ryo has to like calmly be like, it's okay.
I got it. Just give me the gun.
Just gonna take this out of your hand now. All right. Shh.
and she's just over here collapsing like, because admittedly, tying back to the anime and all the other depictions, if the gun hasn't been clearly messed with to where she misses, one, it's going to be really hard to play off that she misses at damn near point blank range. But two, the whole thing is that Ryo, his whole motivation throughout every other depiction of City Hunter is he's doing his damnedest to keep Kaori's hands clean.
That is very true. I do feel like we should have had a moment during the last big shootout where Kaori tried to shoot at people and she missed. And even if we don't see that Ryo is fucked with her gun so that she definitely can't shoot, you could have just argued, oh, well, she's never actually fired a gun before, so clearly she's missing, right? And it could have been a funny thing because that is a very obvious thing about her character is that she can't hit shit. She's like a stormtrooper. And she does freak people out because she misses everything, but she doesn't hit stuff. So I feel like we have just missed that opportunity. But it is true, we have done the correct thing in taking that gun away from her so that she doesn't actually hurt anybody.
Or kill anybody.
She doesn't have it in her. She doesn't actually want to kill anybody.
Right, exactly. And so at this point, the chopper is basically on top of them. They see that Union Teope Steve has basically been compromised, so they turn around like they're gonna leave his ass. And as he sees, oh shit, they're gonna leave my ass, well, I've got nothing left to leave for, and he goes to pull...
Well, they've also triggered the thing in the back of his neck,
That's what I'm saying.
Right?
He acts like he's about to shoot Kaori and Ryo.
But to get his last thing in before they kill him. But Ryo sees that he's gonna do... Or he hears that he's about to try to put a bullet in any of them up there on the roof.
And before anybody can do anything, the neck bomb goes off. But you see that even though the neck bomb took him out, he's holding Kaori, but he's clearly holding the snub nose in such a way that had that neck bomb not gone off, he was ready. Now, for what that's worth, I do think it's a little cheap that Ryo didn't get to do him in either, because that's 2 times we could have gotten revenge on Makimura through Ryo, because in the anime and the manga...
for Makimura.
Well, yeah, for Makimura. That's 2 times we took the kill away from Ryo.
That's true.
Like, that is kind of upsetting. You should have at least let him shoot this guy. I wish he had been the one to blow his head off.
Yeah, or get him in the heart.
Something like that, yeah.
Yeah.
Because I think they might have thought it was too much if right here we find out he's actually the guy with the robot arm gun, the Union Teope Steve.
Oh, yeah. You mean, Red Pegasus
Oh,
Steve.
yeah, sorry. That would have made him Red Pegasus Steve. No,
yeah,
you're right.
because the anime is like, we had to invent a new organization called Red Pegasus. Why, though?
Why
did you
Why
do
couldn't
that?
you say Union Teope?
We had an organization already. Why did we make Red Pegasus?
I don't know why you did this.
And then we have to wait like 30 years before
35 years, damn.
35 years to fix this so that Red Pegasus and Union Teope are like a thing together. They're both a together thing. So, it took a long time.
But the thing, too, that's also a missed opportunity is that Ryo is facing down a helicopter
and he doesn't shoot
exactly, which we see it here in several openings of City Hunter. We're going to see it again here when we start covering City Hunter 3. That's part of the next week or next episode that Ryo shoots at helicopters. That's a thing he does. And we missed that right here.
Remember the time that he shot at a helicopter blade while it was in mid-flight and it just took the helicopter blade out and then the helicopter just crashed and exploded?
Yeah, that was great.
Yeah, it was great.
But the helicopter decides to leave him, and it's kind of a we'll see you again at some point, whoever's in the helicopter. And Sayako has finally shown up here at the Lore building. They get Kaori and Kurumi out of there. Ryo has taken off.
I guess. He's not with them. I don't know where he is.
Well, somebody's got to drive the Mini home.
Right. And we do see, eventually, Ryo's just kind of driving around the city. He, drives around the city until the sun comes up.
Until sunrise. To me, that is a joke, because they very blatantly show the sunrise.
Josh, we live on a planet where the sun comes up.
Kaylin, what is the name of the company that couldn't help but put their name over everything in the show?
I feel...
Sunrise.
Yeah, and I feel like... I think you're thinking too hard about it. I think if they wanted to reference Sunrise, they would have just put Sunrise's logo in somewhere. They would have just done it. I promise
But
you.
if they didn't get permission to work with Sunrise, because it's not Sunrise anymore, it's Aniplex.
Well, no, Sunrise still animates it, but it's like...
distributed through Aniplex.
Yeah, it's like produced by Aniplex. It's still
though,
Sunrise.
I feel like it's a joke.
No, this is just cinematography. movie.
Yeah,
this
but
is
it's
literally just
but it's sunrise.
Oh, okay. You know what they definitely didn't do right, though, is we saw 2 crows, but they were just crows, just for the sake of...
the commercials
Okay,
for this...
so why is it you're so convinced that the sunrise is a thing, but the crows are not a thing?
The crows were false advertising, because they show the crows in the commercials for this movie,
right.
You're led to believe they're in comedic moments, and you see them throughout this movie, like they cut to them twice, but it's never anything having to do with comedy.
No, in fact, at one point, a crow is kind of hanging out by a corpse, and so that's not funny.
That's not funny in the slightest.
Not funny at all.
Yeah, so that seems like it was incredibly misleading. I'm upset about that.
Okay. But you're not upset that it's just the sun coming up over the horizon.
No, I'm not saying it's upsetting. I'm saying this is actually funny. To me, at least.
This isn't a funny moment. This is a very serious, like, the night has passed and Rio has been driving all night. This is a very serious thing.
Well, it's the denouement. Like, the action is dying down now. Everybody's finally starting to breathe and relax.
I understand how stories are written. I understand the arcs.
But sunrise.
Oh my god. Okay, sure. Alright, you can have
But
it.
now, this is a point I have to give in favor of Netflix. The next scene we see here is Kaori at Makimura's gravestone, which is done exactly like it's drawn in the anime.
In very Western style, as if he has actually had a burial, which is very rare for Japan because there's just not a lot of real estate for bodies. So most people get cremated. But this is a very Western style grave.
Like, it looks the same as it does in the anime when they go visit it. And we see that he was born in 1988.
I mean, great. Like, they said he was 36. We have to have somebody who is 36 years old. It just happens that it's the 80s when that man was born.
And she leaves, the flowers there at his gravestone. She kind of silently says a little prayer or something, and then she walks off. And now we're back at the apartment. Rio is back home from having driven around all night, and he hears noise coming from the living room.
He gets up. He's just in, like, his shirt and his boxer briefs.
Well, yeah, he throws a shirt on real quick.
Yeah. And Kaori is out in the living room vacuuming the apartment. Mind you, Kaori is wearing a Kaori clothing.
She is 100% wearing her modern Shinjuku Private Eyes and On outfit.
Yeah, it's the white jacket, it's the pink shirt, it's the jeans and white shoes, and I know it just because I just dressed up in these clothes for Anime Las Vegas. Like, oh, holy shit, you're just doing, that is literally just her
We have
outfit.
put you in your outfit.
Yeah.
Yes, thank you.
You did one of them. I mean, like, yeah, you picked the most modern, it's probably most recognizable to current day audiences, I guess.
Right, exactly.
Yeah.
Because the cowards wouldn't put her in the good jacket.
I know.
But she's telling Rio, I'm cleaning up your apartment because I can't live here unless this place has less porn.
And she has done this before in the anime too. You'll remember episodes where she just bagged up all his porn into all of these trash bags. And
which she's done here.
Yeah, and Rio has to come home to be like, oh my god, where did it all go? And he has got to dig through this trash. And he's digging through his trash to try and find all his porn.
And we kind of zoom in on this picture of Kaori and Makimura there on the mantelpiece.
I'm pretty sure it's a
his shelf, yeah.
Yeah, it's a pretty similar recreation to a photograph that Kaori does have of herself and her brother in the anime as well.
In her room, yeah.
In her room, mm-hmm.
But at this moment, we start hearing Get Wild Continual playing. Rio's trying to pull the porn back out of the trash bags, but now we see that Kaori, she's reattached the handle and has kept the wooden hammer, and is now taking swipes at Rio, chasing him through the apartment.
Which feels pretty tonally different from the rest of the movie, but also it felt like, how could we do anything else?
Right.
It had to be this.
And the way she's yelling at him and kind of joking with him right now, vocally, it sounds to me like she's voice matching the original actress there in the anime.
Certainly in Japanese, yes.
In Japanese, 100%. Yes. It ends right there. Freeze frame on Rio getting hit with the hammer. Zoom out.
She's swinging at him at least. And zoom out of the apartment, which is also freeze framed. Which again, I feel like this movie nails it. Nikki Larson nails it in the exact same way. Granted, in Nikki Larson, she has just grabbed a nearby sledgehammer. It's
right, but she is also chasing him.
But she's also chasing him and swinging a hammer at him, and they have freeze framed with Rio running away from Kaori swinging a hammer. Like,
there is no other way to end a City Hunter movie.
And they both end on Get Wild. I need to stress to you, I know it's gonna be a while before we get to Nikki Larson. It's difficult not to compare Netflix to French film, because they both kind of nail it.
Yeah,
if you're gonna ask me, which of these two are the better City Hunter movies, I don't think I can tell you one of them is better than the other.
You say
one.
Yes,
yeah,
is what you say. Because really, the way this is set up, Because this is the end of the movie. Credits roll, and then at the very end, you see that someone else has written an XYZ on the chalkboard.
So there is room for...
There's absolutely room for a sequel.
They could go on more adventures. There is not a stinger or a tease for another movie.
It's open-ended.
It's just kind of, you could do more if you felt like it.
Yeah, like, you can see this is where City Hunter starts. This is an origin movie.
Yes.
And so once you realize that, in my head, with a very minimal amount of editing, if you look at it that way, they go together, quite honestly. They could go together very easily. That you start here, this is the first movie, you watch Netflix City Hunter first, and then you could damn near jump right into Nicky Larson and hardly feel a difference.
Except you would be able to tell suddenly, like, hey, why are all these people white?
Yeah, but if you get over that, like, you just accept these are both adaptations, it's the same characters.
It is.
And they act close enough to each other that you can see Kaori now kind of shifting into the comedic version of herself.
And if you go into Nicky Larson, they give you the introduction of Umibozu, and you're just like, okay, yeah, I can see it. I can see it. You watch this one first, you follow it with the Nicky Larson as a chaser.
Yeah.
Right?
And it's a great back-to-back movie night, quite honestly.
Yeah, yeah.
And so, yeah, that is Netflix City Hunter. I gotta say, my hopes were tempered as best they could be, but it came out incredibly solid.
This is like a 95 out of 100. Honestly,
I try not to be biased towards Nicky Larson because I saw it first.
It's crazy how good Nicky Larson ended up being, despite the fact that they're in the wrong country and they are the wrong ethnicity. But like, they did their own adaptation of their Nicky Larson show so well that they're making references to City Hunter, the Japanese show, and Nicky Larson, the French show, and they're both there somehow. I don't know how Nicky Larson ended up being so good, and so it's so hard to, you come to Netflix City Hunter, and like, you have to grade it against, you don't have to grade them against each other.
You really shouldn't.
It's hard not to.
But it's the little things that they did that I wish were here, just the little things like certain sound effects.
Right.
And a little bit more use of music and BGM from the show.
Yes.
Which, I get it, you know, you're trying to get new people in that may not be familiar with the show, so they're not going to catch it, but it's the thing, like, they put in a little extra effort to get you there, whereas this one, they know they're trying to appeal to a wider audience.
Yeah, that is true.
And so I've seen a lot online, action people who love action movies, seeing clips of this and finally being interested, like, hey, let me check this out. Let me see what City Hunter's got going on.
Yeah.
And it's working. Like, people are watching it. Sure enough, like, the movie's been out for about 3 days now. It's #1 in France on Netflix right now. Of
course it is, because Nicky Larson is so important to France. It's just, if you told me, oh, France invented Nicky Larson, like, you would almost believe it, right? Apparently, I saw one guy respond to me saying the only thing I didn't like about the French adaptation, or the French localization of Netflix City Hunter, was that in both the sub and the dub, they stuck to Nicky Larson naming schemes. They were Nicky and Laura in both versions, and people were like, oh, well, if I'm watching it in Japanese, you should have subtitled Ryo as Ryo and Kaori as Kaori.
Yeah,
and apparently Netflix did not do that.
Oh, that's for the closed captioning and the English?
Yeah.
Wow, I did not know that.
For the subtitles and for the dub.
See, that seems a little disingenuous. I believe, because we didn't get it over here, for the UK release of the Takashi Miike Ace Attorney movie, you had an option. You could either go with the Capcom names, or you could go with the original names.
That's how they did Phoenix Wright, Ace Attorney, the anime on Funimation/Crunchyroll.
Oh, no, that's what I'm thinking of. Yeah. That's what I'm thinking of,
yes,
right.
In the anime, you could make that decision.
Of having either him be called Phoenix
or Naruhodo.
Exactly, yeah. So I think that's very important when the names have been localized to give people that option.
Yeah.
That they can decide, they can curate their own experience.
I do think it is kind of weird, like, if you're talking about Nicky Larson, the French movie from 2019, that's Nicky Larson, right? When you're talking about, this is clearly Ryo Saiba, and he lives in Shinjuku, Japan, why are we calling him Nicky Larson, right?
I mean, like, you kind of have to work around, because they even dubbed the Nicky Larson live action back into Japanese, so that they do call them Kaori and Ryo.
Right, so this is what I'm saying. In France, why is there not a version?
No, they should have a version where they have the option of calling them Ryo and Kaori. Absolutely.
Yeah, I don't know why that is. It's It's crazy.
But as a whole, yeah, this movie hits a lot of the things that I feel like not necessarily were missing. It's just the things that I wish were heightened more in Nicky Larson. The action here is impeccable. This is the best action that I've seen. I do wish there was more humor, like that Kaori specifically and Sayako
I feel like this is...
were a little more comical.
This is more dry. I was hoping for a little more comedy. It's not like there aren't really funny things that happen. But, like, man, Nicky Larson had me busting stitches.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. I can watch that right now and still laugh as hard as I watched the first time.
Right.
And this one, this is the thing. I don't put either Philippe Lachaud or Ryohei Suzuki on a higher pedestal. They both nailed Ryo.
It's crazy. It's crazy.
They both absolutely got it.
Yeah. It's weird how much, like, another country has embraced this series so hard that even Ryohei Suzuki...
on Twitter the other day, yesterday...
is praising Nicky Larson.
Yeah, praising the Philippe Lachaud version.
Yes.
But the thing about it is, on Twitter, he's been out there saying, oh, you want to know what I love about City Hunter? I love the music. I love Get Wild. I love Running to Horizon. I love Supergirl. Like, he knows the music.
He does, and he says, oh, Ryo has been inside me my whole life. I've always known Ryo. Oh, okay.
Oh, I didn't know it was, like, on a kin level, but, bro, you proved it. Like, you got this. And, like, I feel like I want a sequel to Nicky Larson, quite honestly.
Yeah.
But I need a sequel to this. Because I need them to grow in these characters.
I think another thing that is interesting that we basically never discussed through this entire podcast episode is we didn't have to stop to be like, and then there was this thing that the dub did. Like, I never felt at any point in time that the dub did anything horrendously different or wrong or weird in any way. I'm not certain how I feel about the register of Ryo's voice in English. I feel like it's a little lower than I would expect, but he is in no way a bad actor. Everybody was a good actor. Everybody was really good in their role.
Yeah, like, I don't say I prefer, because I read his name and I didn't remember it. I didn't remember to write it down. This guy versus Stephen Fu, who played him in Shinjuku Private Eyes.
Yes.
I can't say that I prefer one to the other.
That's true.
Between the two of them. I just know I like both of them better
than Joe Saiba.
Yes.
This is like, because you remember when we did 357 Magnum, here we are going back and forth about, and then the dub did this. There is none of that here.
No problems there. No. Yeah. And so this is a perfect, comparatively speaking, I think you need to be less initiated to watch this. This is a great entry point for City Hunter.
Sure.
I can very easily recommend this to anybody at my job, friends of mine.
Somebody asked me on Twitter the other day, like, oh, is this a good entry point to City Hunter? Like, yes, this is like the first 5 to 8 episodes of the anime, right? Like, it's covering approximately...
about 5 to 6 episodes, yeah.
Approximately that much of the show. It's right at the very beginning. You don't need to be initiated at all. It's where it starts.
Right, exactly.
Almost exactly right where it starts.
You don't need to know anything going into this. And if you want to get further into it, ask us, or
Did you know we have a podcast?
You guys listening might know. You guys listening might not know. We have a podcast about this show. But no, like, it's great.
It's great.
It's everything I was hoping it would be. I need a sequel with Umibozu.
I know, like, I feel really Umibozu robbed, but I understand. It's an origin story. Umibozu doesn't need to show up right now, but yes, he does. Yes, he does. I need him.
We need the cat hijinks. But no, like, we say all that to say, because a lot of people were asking, we don't grade it any higher than Nicky Larson.
But Nicky Larson does have Umibozu.
Nicky Larson does have Umibozu. There is that. So, yeah, I highly recommend you go check out this movie. It's streaming now on Netflix. If you ain't got an account, go borrow somebody's. I'm sure that's still legal right now.
For a little while.
For a little while, at least.
Or find some other way.
Which probably exists. Yes. But yeah, a solid 9 out of 10.
9 out of 10 for
9
sure.
9 out of 10, yeah.
9 out of 10 for sure. No adaptation has been the perfect, oh my god, no notes.
No doubt.
But 2 of them have been like, man, these are really good anime adaptations.
No,
and if anybody tries to tell you there are no good anime adaptations, they're fucking lying.
They're full of shit.
I know that they'll jump straight to One Piece, and then they'll just forget that Nicky Larson and Netflix City Hunter exist, because these have been so good.
Speed Racer?
Oh, Speed Racer.
I won't stand for Speed Racer erasure.
That's very true.
Try saying that 3 times fast. Don't actually try.
Speed Racer Erasure. I would definitely fuck that up if I tried to go faster.
But this isn't a Speed Racer podcast. This is a City Hunter podcast.
I'm excited. We're going to be starting City Hunter 3 next week.
Next episode, yeah.
Next episode, where we get an opening sequence that should be really good, but as soon as the singer opens his mouth, it is not.
And it's also equally misleading in some ways about certain aspects if you don't know what City Hunter is.
That is very true. It does look a lot like they tried to be manga City Hunter, and then, you know what? They shouldn't try that.
But we'll get more into that on next episode.
So come back next time when we cover the first episode of City Hunter 3, Mokori Declaration. XYZ saves the world.
And if you want to catch us outside this podcast, you can always find us both over on most social media. I'm at JoshKnightTheFirst.
And I'm at MarzGurl. Thank you all so much for listening to our 116th episode of MokkoriPlay. And if you don't come back next episode, I'm hitting Josh with a hammer 3 times.
Wait, once is enough. Why do you have to hit me 3 times?
City Hunter 3!
But I'm only one person.
City Hunter 3!